What's that? It's live right now. All right, we're live right now. We haven't started the meeting. So,
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Chris, you can see the YouTube. Great.
Nicole, just
Oh.
checking in. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, all good.
All right, and we can hear you. Your voice goes right through the speaker, so you're if you say anything you say will be heard.
Okay, great. Good
All
to
right.
know.
All right. So now that we're technologically set up and we made those announcements, could I ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. That was our call to order, and we have a recording of attendance. Again, everyone is here. We have Chris Wayok and Nicole King are joining us remotely by phone. We've established they can hear us and we can hear them. That brings us to visitor comments. So I have, lots of different names have populated since I made that announcement. So that's great. Okay. We have, I'm going to take these in order. First to speak, I have Kyle Gangware.
Okay. Hello. Girls wrestling and co-ed soccer came to you just in the last couple weeks. I applaud your efforts to get those teams off the ground and am thrilled for the opportunities given to our athletes. The music and theater parents have been coming and pleading for not just weeks, years. Not one season, but many seasons. These past 3 years, they have been providing you with lists and requests. Every time they come, you say you support it, but then you don't back it up. You actually took the initiative to research these new sports teams when parents asked about them and found out about how much they would cost. I'm curious if tonight you will show that you took the same initiative to look into the requests brought to you by the music and theater parents at the last meeting. Not just the auditorium stuff, the whole list. Speaking of auditorium stuff, recently you have discussed the items you have spent money on for the arts, but most of the items listed were school maintenance items. Do we ask the football team to pay for lights when they burn out in the stadium? No, that's stadium maintenance. But when speaking about theater, you talk about the lighting and sound equipment like those are theater expenses, and they're not. They're school auditorium expenses. And even then, you only fix some of these things after you've been begged to. New mic packs have been requested multiple times. You wouldn't get new ones, but you did finally fix some of the wiring issues after a mic pack burned a student. It should concern you that it took a student being burned to do something. My ask for you tonight is that you actually look at the list music, theater, and arts parents have given you. Try to do something for them instead of trying to justify why you can't or won't. And don't just look at the maintenance and material items, look at the stipend requests. We pay numerous stipends for some of our sports teams. Why are we unwilling to offer the same for theater? Almost every sport we have has at minimum one assistant coach, but you don't want to allow for an assistant director? Theater rehearses every day after school, just like our teams do. There are just as many students involved in theater as we have on some of our sports teams, and in many cases, more. So why is there such a large disparity between what you are willing to pay for sports and what you are willing to pay for theater? You are about to approve the raise in our sports budget by more than $60,000, but you aren't willing to raise the budget for the arts at all? You didn't even add it for discussion on tonight's agenda. There has to be some compromise you could reach if you would just give this the attention it deserves. Show these kids sitting here what they do is just as valuable to our district as what our sports teams do. Show them you care enough to find that compromise. Again, I'm happy for our new sports teams and the opportunities those students are being given, but they didn't have to beg you, and we shouldn't have to beg you either. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Maria Alt.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you to all of you I know this is a volunteer job, so thank you for your time. As you may or may not know, Biden unconstitutionally created an executive order illegally changing Title IX, which takes effect on August 1st. So I just wanted to ask the board tonight, because that new executive order will allow boys in the girls' bathroom and girls' locker room, and ultimately boys playing on girls' sports, vice versa. So if you could please let the community know what the school board plan is in terms of, are you creating a bathroom policy to allow the boys to go into the girls' bathroom and locker rooms? If you can just give as much notice as possible about that, just in case parents want to make any decisions about, their children and the education they want them to receive. Secondly, as you may know or not know, but now you'll know, of the secret gender affirmation policy that is here at Southern Lehigh, that is still effective today. And I'm wondering if this school board is going to take any action on the secret gender affirmation policy, because it violates FERPA and it violates parental rights. So that's currently still happening. And third, I've been brought up about school counselors providing mental health services to the kids. Could you please let us know what mental health services are being provided to the students? Because no mental health service is to be provided by school counselors or any staff. That's the job of and responsibility of the parent. So if you could, for the sake of transparency, let us know what the school board plans is for the new Title IX change, what mental health services are being provided to the students, and what this board plans to do about the secret gender affirmation policy that's here at Southern Lehigh. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you. Next, I have Orrin Bossert.
Hello, my name is Orrin Bossert. I'm a junior here at Southern Lehigh and have concerns over comments made last board meeting regarding the vacancy left in Liberty Bell's guidance counselor and how such a position will be filled. Last meeting, Dr. Mann said on the subject that there is a possibility that one of the high school counselors would move to Liberty Bell. This is incredibly worrying, as the stress on both our guidance team and the students they help with will certainly increase. Today, we will see how the stress on our current guidance department will only be exacerbated by this transfer. The American School Counselor Association recommends that the student-to-counselor ratio be 250 to 1. In the 2023-2024 school year, Southern Lehigh High School had 1,056 students. With our 4 guidance counselors today, this leaves us with a 264 to 1 ratio. By cutting 1 guidance counselor, this would result in a 352 to 1 ratio. They continue explaining that a lower ratio leads to higher test scores, attendance, GPA, and graduation rates, along with a decrease in disciplinary infractions. Guidance counselors are a vital component of our environment, both in and outside school walls. Guidance counselors help with inter and intrapersonal issues, scheduling, and post-secondary planning. This helps prepare students for college and beyond, ensuring that our students have the adequate resources to give back to their community. While some may argue that our school social worker and psychologist would make this transfer manageable, both serve very different purposes. Social workers, for example, serve as a way to, while they do work very closely with school counselors, they serve a much more direct and specific support to students who need it. School counselor Mrs. Pa.C.S. explains that, quote, when there are issues happening outside of school walls and students need more than just a school counselor, the social worker is an additional layer of support for the student and family. This is incredibly important, but ultimately a very different role. As a junior, my guidance counselor is a vital resource as I plan for my college years. By transferring one of the counselors, students at the high school will inevitably see a decrease in resources as we stretch the guidance department too thin. This practice sets a precedent that leads to similar occurrences with teacher reallocation, resulting in greater class sizes. I urge the board to question the wisdom of this proposition and how it will affect the well-being of students and the guidance team alike. Simply put, this will damage Southern Lehigh student body, not only during our high school years, but as we advance into the successful adults that our counselors have helped us become. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Robert Morgan.
Dear Dr. Mann, Dr. Trinkle, and Southern Lehigh School Board Directors, we are writing to you in anticipation of your discussion at this evening's school board meeting about the needs of the SLHS Theater Department. I hope it's safe. Oh, wait, sorry, ignore that. Just kidding. During the April 22nd, 2024 school board meeting, it became evident that there are some misunderstandings about the high school theater program's finances. Given that, it's important that before you have any further discussions tonight, these misunderstandings are cleared up so the conversation can be efficient and effective. Number one, the theater fund. Based on comments made during the meeting, as well as communications sent to parents via email before the meeting, it was clear that the theater fund has not been clarified to the proper extent. This fund, which currently sits at approximately $30,000, is generated almost in its entirety by fundraising and parent-driven efforts, including, but not limited to, ticket sales, all advertising and promotions for the high school shows, including the design and printing of posters placed around the community, social media posts, etc., are made solely by parents, students, and theater faculty. No promotional advertising efforts by the district or school. Concessions. Items sold were 100% donated by parents. Fundraising, coordinated and organized by parents as part of Southern Lehigh Music Parents. Program ads, advertisement requests are made entirely by parents and students, as historically cover the large cost of printing hundreds of programs. If there is any advertising money beyond the cost of printing, that excess is placed directly back into the theater fund. Any additional money left in the theater fund after the spending is complete for the most recent performance is rolled over into the upcoming performances. The budget provided by the school is technically in this theater fund, but that district money is spent almost immediately. See below, theater budget from district school. Several times during the past two school board meetings, there were statements made that the theater budget was sufficient because A, it had increased from approximately $10,000 to approximately $12,000, and B, it is the highest budget for a club in the school. While the high school theater community is grateful for any funding, I believe these points require further clarification. A, $12,000 is unfortunately not sufficient in order to put on 2 full shows. Even adding in the funds driven by ticket sales, which parent volunteers collect, as opposed to paid ticket staffing at athletic events. The total amount has to cover the extraordinarily high production costs, such as materials for building 2 entire sets, costs of decorating 2 full sets beyond just building them, cost of props for both the play and the musical, cost of costumes for 20 plus actors for both the play and the musical, which, this is a note, the cost of building and decorating materials and costuming supplies has increased more than 40% over the past 4 years. Payment of non-stipend positions, for example, the music director, purchasing the rights to each show, see below. While theater may be the highest budget provided to a club in high school, it is unlikely that the other clubs have to spend over 50% of their entire school provided budget just to operate. Purchasing the rights to 2 shows can average between about $6,000 and $7,000, which means that before any activities, rehearsals, auditions, or any show preparation can begin, at least half of the school provided budget is spent, leaving just a few $1,000s with which to operate. This brings me to my third point, which will be passed on to the next speaker.
All right, next I have Sophie Wheeler.
I know.
Financial, I don't know that word, for school provided funding. As you review the upcoming 2024 to 2025 budget, I'd implore that you review the following data when it comes to determining whatever that word is for the high school theater budget. Outside of SLSD, theater budgets of similarly or smaller sized schools in Colonial League. Attached is the spring musical stipend budget for Bangor High as a comparison. Other comparisons are available. Please let us know if you would like those. Within SLSD, comparison to athletics versus non-athletic clubs. We believe that a more accurate comparison for the sake of budgeting is to review theater along with athletic stipends and budgets. Director position is much more in line with the coaching position versus the faculty advisor to a club. Similar scope of logistics to be managed and similar training coaching responsibilities, acting, singing, blocking, dancing, to athletic training regimens. Amount of theater rehearsals are similar to the amount of practices that sports teams require. Community attendance at theater productions are similar to, if not more than, attendance at athletic events. Caliber of individual students' performances can drive scholarship opportunities for students, just as with athletic scholarship opportunities driven by game performances. Given these comparators, please consider the following as an example of the concerning discrepancies. Total student participation in theater is approximately 50 students with no assistant director position. Every athletic team except tennis and golf, boys and girls, provides for at least one assistant coach. Example, cheerleading and rifle have each 22 students and both have a paid coach and assistant coach position. And please keep this in mind, if you add up all of these requests made, even at the absolute highest range, it would total approximately $50,000. That equates to a little over $1,000 per student. For a program that receives regional recognition and rewards, entices over 1,000 community members to attend the shows every year, and includes over 50 students participating for dozens of hours a week for months on end, we don't believe it is too much to ask, especially given the $4 million surplus and the recent high school cost approval of other activities with significantly less students involved. Tonight, we are asking that you provide the same research and review, assessment, discussion, and decision-making about your SLHS theater program that you would with other activities, particularly those that are like theater, high exposure to the community region, and inspire our younger SLSD students to look forward to their high school experience. I'll end with this. Immediately following the close of The Addams Family, I received a message from a mother of a student at Liberty Bell. I'd never met her, but she reached out so that she could express her gratitude for the inspiration of our high school students provided for the elementary students. Please let this last paragraph be a reminder of just how many kids throughout the district are truly impacted by a healthy, fair-funded theater program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Betty Gangwer.
I'll be reading that paragraph. My friend and I brought our daughters and a whole bunch of their little girlfriends to see the Addams Family show on Sunday afternoon. This has become our tradition every year. They are in 3rd grade at Liberty Bell. First, the show was outstanding, but the most wonderful part was after the show. The cast made a big impact on our kiddos. They all took the time to gather and get a big group photo of them with our girls. I can test that. I was there. Words really can't describe how happy our girls were. They haven't stopped talking about it. I know it was an emotional time after the show, and they were so busy visiting and being congratulated by all. But the fact that they took time to get as many cast members as possible together for a photo with a group of 3rd grade girls was really special. They inspired our girls. Please thank them for us. Thank them for being kind young adults and inspiring our kids in theater. It was perfect timing, too. They are all working on their 3rd grade play. They were reading through programs, looking at the pictures of the cast when they were younger, saying they were just like us. When we get to high school, we can be in the shows too. It was a very sweet moment that brought tears to our eyes. Thank you all again for raising such wonderful young adults, and thank them for inspiring the next generation with a small act of kindness by taking a photo with a bunch of 9-year-old fans. Sincerely, Renee D'Amico, Patrick of Parent D'Amico, sophomore. Freddie nominated.
Thank you. Next, I have, and last, unless I'm missing someone, last is Julie Bird.
Hello again. I talk a lot here. My name is Julie Bird, and I'm usually speaking to the board and administration as a kindergarten crusader, as someone has named us. But today, I'm a parent in the district of a child with a disability. I'd like to bring to the attention of the school board, administration, and the community in attendance in person or virtually that children who have a 504 plan that have that plan managed by the school counselor in their building in this district. Some information from the Southern Lehigh website as well as niche.com, which aims to provide factual information about our schools. This is enrollment data as of 2023. In Southern Lehigh School District, there are 4 high school counselors with a ratio of 264 students per counselor, 1 middle school counselor at 519 to that 1, 750 intermediate school students to 1 counselor, 435 Hopewell students to 1 counselor, 407 Liberty Bell students to 1 counselor. Since 1965, the American School Counselor Association has recommended a 250 to 1 student to counselor ratio. These are the people who know the job best, have earned advanced degrees, and have gained actual experience and knowledge from doing the actual job of school counseling. They know what they need in order to do right by our children. Much like a surgeon knows he needs a scalpel to perform surgery, he also knows that a butter knife just won't do. From www.2.ed.gov, a 504 plan protects students with disabilities. To be protected under a Section 504, a student must be determined to 1. Have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major activities of life, or 2. Have a record of such impairment, or 3. Be regarded as having such an impairment, end quote. This ranges from physical disabilities such as limited mobility or blindness to invisible disabilities such as ADHD or anxiety, and to other health impairments such as life-threatening allergies and concussions, while not including intellectual disabilities that cause academic delays. Not all mental impairments cause academic delays. 504 plans are not IEPs and are separate legal documents from gifted IEPs in the case of twice exceptional students. Student accommodations in 504 plans are designed to level the playing field for students with disabilities and assure and ensure equal access to learning opportunities. Our school counselors manage 504 plans. The school counselor's role is to advocate for our students with disabilities. They are the ones who are tasked with ensuring that the district is complying with the needs of these students and arguably keeping the district out of litigation, read spending a lot of money. It would be unconscionable to have this legal document managed by someone who simply doesn't have enough time to get to know the child who is covered by the 504 plan because they are stretched to double or triple capacity managing more types of situations and children than a 3-minute speech allows me to enumerate. I was thoroughly disturbed at the last school board meeting to learn just how stretched our school counselors are as compared to the recommended ratio and compared to the state average in our K-8 schools. I'm here to request that the board and administration consider hiring additional counselors for the K-8 schools, in particular the intermediate school where there is the greatest mathematical disparity. To be clear, I'm advocating for hiring additional professional school counselors beyond just replacing the school counselor who is retiring with another counselor in a way that does not take away from another one of our schools, not only to bring the student to counselor ratio closer to the recommended 250 to 1, but to increase the likelihood of support and therefore academic success for our students with disabilities.
Thank you. That concludes visitor comment. At this time, we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is stated as being the approval of the minutes. Before that, I have the executive session summary by our board solicitor. Our board solicitor is not present tonight. Dr. Mann, we did meet in executive session immediately before this to discuss collective bargaining and personnel.
Correct.
I was not a participant in any other executive sessions. Are you aware of any others, perhaps through facilities or other committee meetings that took
Our
place?
facility committee had an executive session. And we could summarize, rather than have me remember.
Off the
which
top
is
of your
a
head?
faulty,
Okay. It was
a
in the-
faulty thing to
It was
do.
on the agenda, so I will say that we did meet immediately prior to this meeting to discuss, like I said, collective bargaining and personnel, and we will
We could have a
postpone.
full report.
We will have a full report at when our solicitor is here to fully cover, as she usually does, the topics covered in those exec sessions. I just did not want to skip the item on the agenda. Yes, Mr. Carney.
Just wondering if the robotics team is considered visitor comment.
Oh no, they are here.
Their
Thank you for pointing out.
superintendent's
They are.
yes.
We just have to. As soon as we vote on the minutes, we're going to get right to the robotics team. So, having said that, Mr. Carney, was that a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. And do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Torba. Any questions or comments before we vote on that? Seeing none. We're struggling with the microphone. Are you okay, Ms. Cruz? Okay. Hold that cord in tight. Helps it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, now we get on to the hard hat material, which you can't see at home as we have Spartex in blue shirts and hard hats and a robot waiting in the hallway. So come on in. We're going to do this with the superintendent's report and
Yes.
say thank you. Very exciting.
Yes, my superintendent report will tell off quickly, but we're starting with our robotics team. Is Gwen?
She
She
is
may be
in the hallway.
hall.
Gwen is in the
Okay,
hallway. I
all right.
see her, but she's not in the room yet.
Gwen is our main spokesperson tonight.
Perfect. And you can pull that robot in to be front and center in the middle of this U so that the folks at home can see on that camera all the hard work you guys put in. Do you need a place to rest that? Or you go? Okay, good.
Very good. So Gwen, you're our spokesperson for tonight. So at your convenience, when you're ready, the stage is yours. And I would encourage you to introduce all of our people here tonight. And I know on behalf of the board, we're all very, very grateful for the amazing work you're doing.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, I'm Gwen. I am the build team captain of the robotics team. Over here we have Matt, who is our driver, Liam, who is our president, Julia is our business captain, Maddie is our wiring captain, and then we have some other robotics team members as well who just came to show their support but will not be presenting.
All right, so here's what we do. We're a team of 40 plus students working alongside professionals to design, program, and build a robot, all while working to promote STEM in our local community. Some things of importance of what we do. So STEM jobs are currently in high demand. As time goes on, these demands go higher and higher, and they're great career options for many students. We teach essential life skills. So these are skills that everyone should be able to know. It's handiwork, skills with tools, skills with logic, ranging from using straight from your hands to using your brain. We give students community experience. So we work with younger students, we work with the Boy Scouts, we help throughout other schools as well, and our program has expanded. And we also give learning experiences to many. So this includes still what I mentioned before. We've expanded throughout the community. We have reached in the middle school, and we provide opportunities for many younger students and as well as all students throughout the high school.
So our game this year was Crescendo, and as you can see on the slideshow, there are photos of the arena of this year. The big box on the top right is called a speaker, and these orange rings are called notes, and our robot would shoot the notes into the speaker, which is about 10 feet into the air. In the middle of the arena, you can see that there's these chains at the bottom right photo, and our robot had to climb onto those chains and lift itself off the ground to get more points. And then at the top left, there's a photo of another box called the amp, which we also had to get a note into there, but it's a smaller wiggle room to get the note inside. And then at the bottom left is a photo of our human player who had to throw notes onto poles for more points.
So here I just have a little video for everyone. This is just a little clip of us playing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our robot and our design. So if you guys want to look at the robot after you're done watching us play. So a little bit about our robot. So obviously we had to pick up these orange notes. So we have intake wheels, which we will demonstrate for you at the end. We'll do everything except shooting because we don't want to anyone. But there's intake wheels here at the back. And then there's also the shooter here, which is on a pivot. So that allows us to shoot in that big speaker that Maddie was talking about from multiple different angles. Then we also have the climbers, which, as Maddie told you, these go up and down just to lift us off the ground. And then we have this little arm that allows us to shoot into the amp, which is that smaller box.
Cool. Thank you.
So I'm also going to pass around. This is a camera. So this is the same camera that is on our robot itself. It's right here in the front on the pivot of the shooter. And this allows our programming to use something called a vision system. So this vision system was arguably the most challenging thing that we tried to do this year. It allowed us to track little QR codes that are on the field and pivot our shooter according to this. Our robot did not have to line up. Our driver did not have to line up to shoot. So all of this was autonomous. And that allowed our programming and as well as our speed for how fast we could shoot to be a lot quicker and not have Matt have all the pressure. In addition to our robot design physically, we also use a lot of stuff on our MacBooks. So we use Fusion, which is a 3D modeling software. If any of you guys have heard of it, Gobbler's classes use it as well.
And this allows us, as you can see up there in the middle, is to fully CAD our robot. So this helps us out a lot with electronics and figuring out what will fit. It also helps us with geometries, like when we're first starting the season to prototype. It allows us to figure out what will work, what definitely won't work, and then physically prototype it to see if it works in reality, because we all know expectation versus reality is a little bit different. We also use 3D printing. If you guys look at our robot, there's a lot of blue and various white boxes that allow us to protect our electronics. And that's super big, so nothing falls apart. We don't want anything falling apart. And the last thing we really heavily utilize is our CNC machine. So for those of you who don't know what a CNC machine is, it's basically like, think about your drill press, your bandsaw, all of those tools that you might find in a machinist's workshop. That is all of that, but in a machine. So we can go ahead and program certain things, like say this plate. Most of the plates on our robot have been CNC'd. So all of these holes were drilled by that machine. This allows us to drastically increase our production rate. It also allows us to rapidly prototype things when we only have 8 weeks to build, program, and wire this entire robot.
It's insane.
Yeah, it is.
So we just finished our season. We just had our debrief a couple weeks ago. A couple of important takeaways. At the competitions, we have qualifying matches and playoff matches. That allows us to be able to, because we have new robots every year, allow us to decide where people are. So in the qualifying matches, we ranked number 2 out of 27 teams at the Allentown, New Jersey district event. We then got the Industrial Design Award at that event, which that award focuses on a combination of aesthetic and functionality. We believe that this was largely in part due to 3D printing and CNCing at Clinton Trail. The second event we went to was Warren Hills at New Jersey. During the qualifying matches, we ranked 6 out of 32 teams, and yet again, we won the Industrial Design Award. It is important to note that at both of these events, we were alliance captains in the playoff matches, which is a large achievement. Finally, at the FMA District Championship, we ranked 41 out of 60. This is not as good as the others because this is a championship. Additionally, in other years, the competition has been significantly less rigorous. For example, in the playoff matches, the alliance captains chose number 40, and they did not choose number 13. This is very unusual because generally it is those top 24 teams that get picked. And finally, out of the entire first Mid-Atlantic District, we were ranked 32 out of 127 teams. Another important part of the team is now that the main part of the competitions is over, we now have our community outreach. So during the season, we went to the IS and we helped with our code. We were able to walk around, support the people, and we were able to show off a robot to instill joy and looking forward for both the middle school team, which we have started recently, and the high school team. The next thing is the middle school STEAM Expo. We were in the auditorium. We were able to be right across from the middle school team, and what that allowed them is to see what they had to look forward to in the next 2 years. The next thing is Liberty Bell Science Night. Yet again, we show off. It allows both parents and the kids to see what they have in the upper schools. And the last thing is Community Day. This is important for not only the parents, but also you guys. We saw a couple of you there at the event. That was really neat to see. It allows people to see what we do as robots, which is crucial for our sponsors. The next thing is our struggles and successes. So starting off with the struggles with practice space. We have, we share the shop with the teachers, which is great. However, we have to tear down every single day because we need to allow them to have that space. And that takes time away from us building a robot. The other thing is the number of mentors. We have a lot of mentors, however, they live lives, and because of that, they have children and wives they need to take care of. And that means that as some of our mentors have stepped away, it's put more strain on the other mentors. Yet again, the practice space is a big thing. We have only 1/8 of the field to practice on, and that makes it really hard to do autonomous and calibration for our robot. Our successes, however, all 10 seniors are graduating this year, and they will be going on to STEM degrees in different ways. This is not anything new. This has been happening for the last, as long as we've been recording the data. This is great because it shows that our system works, and these skills that we're going through the first programs are highly valued. The last thing is student involvement has massively increased. We are now 40 members of the team. 30 of those are regularly active.
So thank you guys very much. We're just gonna. Oh, there's more slides. Oh, that's good. Hello. So we are going to present about the FTC team in middle school. And so this year at the middle school, we've been working on registering as an official FTC team this month. So unfortunately, this year we missed the registration deadline for FTC. So we're trying our best to get everything set up and working. That way we can be able to compete officially next year. And so we currently have 12 middle school students that are actively participating. And that is notable because there's normally an average of about 10 students per FTC team. And so we have been helping with mentoring the middle school students. And what we've been working on at the middle school is that the kids have successfully built and programmed a working drivetrain, which, as you can see here, the drivetrain is essentially the plate at the bottom of the robot that contains all of the wheels and determines the mobility of the robot. And I believe at present we are also working on coming up with a name for our team.
However, we need more than a drivetrain. We need a fully functioning robot for next year. And our FTC team, as functional as they are, they cannot do it entirely by themselves. District financial support will be needed at some point, and we will also need club advisors to help out with our team because unfortunately, the two of us and a few others are not enough to go it alone.
And here you see an example of a completed FTC robot from another team and in our district. And as you can see, it is very similar to the FRC robot, except it is a significantly smaller scale to make it more accessible and easier for the middle schoolers. Okay, so now it's actually the last slide. So thank you guys very much. I think we're just gonna, if you would like, we can just drag the robot around for a couple seconds.
Yes.
You guys like to see it, and if you guys have questions about how it was built or anything that we talked about,
Yes.
you guys are more than welcome to ask.
And to that, Mrs. Gaiman is saying maybe a shot would be okay.
I will
We'll
move,
take
and
our
you may
risk.
shoot it at this, back up and to see full function.
Yeah, that would be okay.
We'll duck and cover.
And Gwen, maybe before you leave, I know that you have members of your team who are not necessarily involved with the robot, but also with marketing and some other things that you have going on. Maybe you could talk about some of the aspects that are non-related to your robot. That are, I don't know if am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, we do have a business team, as I mentioned earlier. Business captain.
Yes, exactly. So, all right, maybe when you're finished, you could talk about that other aspect, which I think is really cool. In addition to the technical work, right? So you're the business captain, right? So
It is getting ready.
Mike, I'd slide out too.
Yeah, it started moving.
So we use a swerve drive. That allows us to move anywhere and everywhere. So we just
I think we're under attack.
I
think we are. I'm a little nervous.
When it starts going red.
No, it's on their side. We're good.
Get it. It's gonna go.
There goes the clock. We just got it fixed.
Lou's gonna have a repair. Very
All right,
cool.
so this is our little demonstration.
Mike Warbeck, we need a ceiling tile over there.
You guys have any questions about the robot itself?
Are there small sponsors to get community support?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
all of these are the sponsors that our business team has gotten us. So things like our hats are actually from one of our sponsors, and that's why we wear them. Kind of become stable. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, would you talk to us a little bit about how different this competition is every year? Because you have to follow a specification, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. I think that's important.
Yeah, so we get a brand new game every year. So we start from scratch every year. The only thing that is at all similar is the drivetrain that we use, but the size of it will change from year to year. This year, as you can see, we're shooting big rings, right? Last year, we were picking up cones and inflatable cubes. Now, as you can imagine, the way that we pick those up can't be the same. So we really go through the design process every year. So it is not at all the same every year.
And I would just say, first off, full disclosure, my company's a sponsor, and I think we have for approval tonight to come tour our automation facility. So we'll see if that passes.
It's already passed. It's in the
Anyway,
info only section, Stephen.
I
You're
would
good.
just like you to talk about some of the engineering and technical skill sets that you're using to create, design, and implement this project.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in our slides, one of the biggest things that I think you won't really learn in a classroom here or even in college is that iterative design process. Getting to do something hands-on and realizing what works and what doesn't it's drastically different than anything you're going to get learning in your physics class or your math class. Even in some of Gawker's engineering classes, it's only very small scale stuff. This is an entire robot that you have to design, right? It's not one thing or one object that has to be moved. It's all of these different designs. Additionally, I think the modeling software, we go a lot more in depth than something you might see in a CAD class. As you can see, you can't see. As you saw, we had this entire robot out to spec, minus nuts and bolts because we would explode the computers. But I think both of those things are really big, and I think life skills that you aren't going to learn in a classroom.
When do you get those specs? When you know the following year's competition?
So we get them 8 weeks before we have to compete. So
you
we have
have
8 weeks to build, program, and wire this entire robot.
So then you're getting together every day after school. And I think I learned on the weekend. I think I heard 6 days.
Yes.
Did I?
Yep. We get from Monday through Thursday from 6 to 9. It usually runs over, I'm not going to lie. And on Saturdays from 9 to 10 to 4. So between 9 and 10 we'll show up and then we'll leave at 4.
Well, I for one would say well done, and I would request that you have either Mr. Gogler or Mr. Mayung reach out for, you're looking for sponsorships in the middle school program. Is that right or no? Okay, so make sure that happens.
What just out of curiosity, what kind of challenges or obstacles do you guys face in preparation or in competition? And to piggyback off of that, what kind of additional items would make the experience even that much more lasting and enjoyable for the group and also benefit future successes like this past year?
Well, I'll start off with kind of the struggles that we go through. Outside of all of the space and stuff, a lot of times at competitions, stuff breaks that's never broken in the shop. So a lot of that is being prepared. So we make doubles of everything that we think is going to break. But for example, this robot, the pivot here, it's on a shaft, right? That's how it pivots. This is the strongest thing that we could get as a pivot, right? The shaft is the strongest material that we could physically buy, and we bent it at Lehigh. There was no way we could have predicted that. So me and all of the pit crew got together and we put it back together before our next match because we were prepared and we knew what to do. Additionally, I would say in terms of trying to make the team better and improving it, I think space, as I mentioned, as Liam mentioned, is obviously not super feasible. But like I said, that 8th field really restricts us, especially in our programming wise. The shop is great; we have plenty of tools, but our programmers physically can't program because there's not enough space. Right? We have about this much space in the room, and it's as long as I don't know exactly how long the full field is, but it's, this is 1/8 of the field.
So you need 8 times what you have here.
Exactly. Because especially in our autonomous mode, which is where it's pre-programmed and there's no driver, right? They need to test that out on a full field. They can't really just guess, oh, yeah, that looks about right. that one doesn't go very well. So we have to go to other fields from other schools that do have fields. But obviously, that's not something we can do every day.
Awesome. Thank you. Well done.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Pip. I don't see him here tonight, but he does a fantastic job. My daughter had a great time in robotics. Sorry, Bridge, but she had a great time in robotics, especially Worlds last year. Sorry you didn't make it, and I wish you the best of luck next year.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for coming out and showing. And when you walked in, I noticed earrings, and I was wondering if that was truly a 3D printed design. And so, thank you. We all have our own now, and maybe we'll trade. So I have a speaker, and we'll trade it up with Dr. Trinkle, and I'll trade after the program. But the other thing I wanted to say was thank you to the mentors and thank you to the teachers for putting in so many hours with this team and encouraging and mentoring. And I saw y'all at Community Day. When they say they volunteer outside of hours, that's not lip service. Not only do these folks work a stand and talk about the program, but like they raked up the hay for the hay maze afterwards on Living Memorial Park. And they put away chairs and they put away tables and they are out in our community. We should be so proud. And we are so proud of you. And thank you for coming out tonight and explaining all that. We really appreciate it.
QR codes
They're April tags. They're similar to QR codes.
Yeah.
The vision system looks at it and it's able to do math.
Oh, so it's I get it. Well,
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
I won't scan it.
I got. We're trying to say.
The technology like the April tag was developed by Michigan University. They're all each one has a number on the field, so 1 through 6 or 9, 10, 12. And each number correlates with an exact measurement or position on the field that the robot can triangulate and calculate where it is.
Dr. Mahon, you had asked for a business overview quick before they leave.
Not to put you on the spot, but you do some very exciting things too. And are you prepared? Are you gonna? Oh, you weren't. And if this is too much or calling you, up, please, we'll catch you another time. But if you had a thought that you might share with us, well, I know in talking to the team that in addition to doing the great thing, you have a foundation that you raise money for, and that you go out and do all kinds of exciting things in the community, and a whole different set of skills than the amazing engineering skills we see. And I thought that's a really good story to tell if I could impose upon you to maybe offer a few of those ideas.
How about the budget and the finances? Do you work on that? Fundraising and what your budgets are?
This is
now I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry.
She does a lot of work, but she's not the
Yeah.
best presenter.
It's okay. It's a tough crowd. Don't worry.
So from what I know, I'm the field captain, so correct me if I'm wrong, Julia, but you guys work on sending packets. We have these packets, which we didn't bring for you, but they give the sponsor all of this information about our team and about why they should sponsor us. So we'll send them an email and we'll say, hey, we're looking for a sponsor. We will put your logo on our robot. We will offer for you guys to come look at our robot. And that's kind of how we email to get stuff out. Right, Julia? Additionally, we do a lot of fundraising. Jackie, who's one of our mentors, she organized several fundraising events this year. We went to Red Robin, we went to Chipotle, we went to Panera and Mod Pizza. So pretty much our whole team shows up. I know I grabbed dinner and I saw everyone there. So that's a huge fundraising event. Additionally, we make weekly social media posts.
Yes, we post. We try and post every week, but we're not really good at a schedule. We give updates for our sponsors, posting about our competition, and just an update on how our team's done.
Because there is a real expectation for entrepreneurial spirit on your team, and that's part of the whole thing. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for the courage to step up and help us. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gogler. I see you stepping out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome. That was great. Thanks very much. All right. That was superintendent update. Anything to add before we get to voting?
Sadly, I do. Sadly, I
Oh,
do.
all
So
right.
we'll go quickly, though, but it's all good news.
You folks do you have something else? Yes, that's what I thought. So I was going to say to Dr. Mann, does the student report through robotics cooperatively or just, okay, great. That's what is next then.
My mistake. Yes. So we were looking forward to this. That is a very important component of what you're doing tonight. So you're double working tonight. You have
Yeah.
two jobs. So
We're going to change the batteries
by
in the
all means.
microphone so
Yes.
we hear you really clearly. But yeah, that's and then you have something beyond. Okay, great.
Try to give it to me the top committee meeting last week. This is up. I'm gonna split it up.
Thank you.
We have here the student report. First is student recognition from LCTI. Two Southern Lehigh LCTI students, Lindsay Kersey and Carly Byrne, have won Elmer Gates Enterprise Awards. These two students are being recognized for their scholastic achievement, school and community involvement, entrepreneurial spirit, and involvement in Skills USA. Lindsay and Carly will be honored at the annual ceremony on May 23rd at Lehigh Carbon Community College. Next is music. Our two jazz bands competed at the Easton Jazz Area Festival on May 4th, and they came back with some pretty cool results. First is Jazz Train. They received an outstanding rating, which is the second highest, and they were only 0.7 points away from getting the superior rating, which is the highest. Sacha San Clemente received an award for the best soloist in the ensemble, and Gabriel McCoy received an award for the best trombone soloist in the entire festival. For Jazz Society, they received a superior rating, which is the highest rating. Madeline Pasila received an award for the best soloist in the ensemble, and they received the best trumpet session of the entire festival, which includes Owen Cobb, Kier Wessner, Patrick D'Amico, and Nicholas Capocha. The students are super excited about the results, and they represented the school very well on and off stage. Thank you for your continued support as we wind down our school year. The next is Southern Lehigh Drama. On Thursday, May 9th, the Freddie Awards nominations were released, and the Addams Family production received 8 nominations overall, 2 group nominations and 6 individual. For the 2 group nominations, they received Outstanding Use of Costumes and Outstanding Ensemble. For the 6 individual nominations, there was an outstanding performance by a female ensemble member for senior Tori Davis as Alice Benecki, outstanding performance by an actress in a supporting role, which was by junior Jenna Seaschultz as Wednesday Addams, Vic Cuma Award for the outstanding solo vocal performance by junior Jenna Seaschultz again for the song Pulled. The Lehigh Valley Live.com and Express Time Student Achievement nominees were sophomore Caroline Grum as sound technician, an outstanding performance by an actress in a leading role, junior Scarlett Cashmere as Morticia Adams. Finally, outstanding performance by an actor in a leading role, sophomore Patrick D'Amico as Gomez Adams. The Freddie Awards will be televised on Thursday night, May 23rd. The whole school is wishing the best for our nominees.
Next, we have the interscholastic athletics. For track and field, the boys and girls teams are undefeated for the 2024 season and won the Colonial League regular season championship. Special congratulations to the senior girls for finishing with a record of 44-0 over their 4 seasons, and the senior boys for finishing with a record of 43-1 in their 4 seasons. At the Colonial League Championship meet this past Tuesday, 5-7, and Wednesday, 5-8, the girls team were meet champions, and the boys team finished in second place. Both teams will be continuing their journey to states this Tuesday and Wednesday at Blue Mountain High School in the district championships with hopes of qualifying for the PIAA state meet. Baseball. Congratulations to the baseball team for winning in their opening round of the Colonial League baseball tournament by beating Bangor 5-1. The team played Northwestern Lehigh this afternoon. The winner will play in the Colonial League championship game at DeSales on Thursday. The baseball team has also clinched a spot in the district baseball tournament. Congratulations on the great season so far, and best of luck for the remainder of the playoffs. Softball. Congratulations to the softball team for clinching a spot in the Colonial League softball tournament and the hard-fought battle this past weekend against Notre Dame. Despite getting knocked out of the Colonial League tournament, the girls will return to action in the district softball tournament on May 24th. Congratulations on the great season and best of luck for the remainder of the playoffs. Boys volleyball. Congratulations to the boys volleyball team for clinching the #1 seed in the district volleyball tournament. Congratulations on the great season so far, and best of luck for the remainder of the regular season that will close out this Wednesday. The boys will begin their district playoffs the week of May 20th. Girls lacrosse. Congratulations to the girls lacrosse team for clinching the #1 seed in the district girls lacrosse tournament. Congratulations on the great season, and the girls will return to action the week of May 20th. Boys lacrosse. Congratulations to the boys lacrosse team for the greatly improved season and for clinching a seed in the district boys lacrosse tournament. The boys will have a first round game the week of May 20th. Upcoming events. 513 to 517, AP testing. 517 to 522, spring keystone testing. Algebra 1 testing on 517 and 520. Biology and ELA testing on 521 and 522. 521 to 524, senior final exams. 522, senior award ceremony. 527, no school for students as it is Memorial Day. 529, senior obligation day and senior breakfast. 530 to 6-4, underclassmen final exams. 530 and 531, graduation practice. 531, SLHS graduation at Stabler Arena. And 6-5, final day of school for the 2023-2024 school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. All right. And now back to Dr. Mayan.
A few quick things. I know we have a long agenda, but I want to offer congratulations to, in their first year, our esports middle school team. They made league finals and were invited to Harrisburg for the state competition in their very first year, which was very exciting. I also addressed earlier was the whole social work counselor. As you know, at the last meeting, we said we were trying to determine an allocation of resources with respect to social workers and counselors. We looked very, very closely at the positions and the responsibilities, both of which are direct service to students. And we've decided that to fill the vacancy, we should be filling it with a guidance counselor rather than a social worker. And our decision was driven because of the fact that we have 2 social workers who provide services to our students through our agreement with St. Luke's. And so when we looked at the needs of our students and the allocation of staff, we do believe that the better choice is to hire a counselor. So we're in the process of finding a counselor along with all exciting, teachers, elementary, Spanish immersion, and a few others there. So I just wanted to kind of offer a report from our last meeting. I wanted to also list on our agenda tonight, we have the creation of the middle school soccer team, which is very exciting. There's no surprise there, but that's a very exciting step forward. We also have on there, and this was worked directly with the tech committee. We will be supplying new technology, new MacBooks to our professional staff, which is a very, very exciting thing for us and well-deserved for our staff. I know they'll be very well used. We have a discussion from our facilities committee on the library, a potential RFP for our library tonight. And I want to conclude by just expressing my enormous gratitude to the Southern Lehigh School Board Negotiations Committee, the SLEA Negotiations Committee, everyone who was involved, our advisor, Mr. Sultanic, the SLEA's advisor, Mr. Lin. I will tell you that, I'm privileged to say this is my 24th year as superintendent. And I've been through many, many negotiations. I have never seen one that was so professional, so collegial, so efficient, and in the end came to such a positive result as I was privileged to observe here in Southern Lehigh. And my hat is off to everyone who was involved in the process. I say that sincerely, having experienced lots, some good, some that I can't even remember because it was so hard, right? So congratulations to everybody involved. Amazing, amazing work. So Mrs. Gaiman, that concludes. Oh, one last thing. We see a number of purchases on tonight's agenda for a number of various things. As Mr. Pepe has mentioned, as I've mentioned in the past, we are experiencing another very good year with respect to closing out the budget. We believe we're running ahead. What we were not able to list on the agenda tonight, but yet something we would like to conclude, but get into by the end of the year, was purchases of cameras. We believe that we can upgrade our facilities, our security systems, and we don't have details for that, but I just wanted to express to the board that it is our intention to move ahead to purchase cameras. We will get back to you with the specifics, And certainly if there are any concerns, I would be very willing to hear them. But because we are running ahead, because this is a distinct need and it's a safety need, we are going to explore this, purchase the cameras, and then kind of get back to the board with information about the specifics, unless there are any concerns to be expressed over that. So we can certainly discuss that, but absent discussion, then Mrs. Gaiman, thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to an exciting agenda tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I guess that was your superintendent report was a great kind of segue. I would like to ask the board now, we do have the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA with the Teachers Association, SLEA, on the agenda for approval tonight. However, it is fairly advanced late in our agenda. And for those teachers who are perhaps tuning in to see the results of the vote and who have to plan for their days tomorrow, does anyone object if I simply bump that item up and take that now for a vote? All right, that's what we'll do. So before we do that, I just want to say, kind of echo Dr. Mann's statements, but I want to say on the behalf of the board, I want to thank the Southern Lehigh Education Association for a very professional and amicable negotiations process. We are incredibly fortunate here at Southern Lehigh to have staff and teachers who not only dedicate themselves to enriching the lives of our community's students on a daily basis, but who also bring that dedication into this negotiations process. At a time when staff and teachers come to the table to advocate for what's in the best interest of their professional livelihood, I got to tell you that what makes Southern Lehigh special is that those folks also come to the table thinking about what's in the best interest of kids. They never set that aside, and that is rare, and it should be recognized, and it should be honored, and we do not do it nearly enough. But I just want to take the time right now to say to the Southern Lehigh staff, teachers, and association, as board members, as parents, as community members, we thank you. Like, we sincerely thank you. So thank you. Woo! So with that, can I have a motion to approve the CBA that we have reached with the SLEA?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. And a second.
Second here.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I didn't wait for the telephone votes. I heard Chris. Nicole, are you there? Okay. Your vote? Yes. Okay, great. Unanimously passes. Thank you so much. Now, back to our agenda as listed. We have curriculum and staff services. Does anyone object if I take items A through G collectively? That is, just slow down. I'll read them slowly so you can all catch up. This is A through G. So that's item A, Spring Co-ed Middle School Soccer, Southern Lehigh Football Booster Club Bylaws, Edmentum Remote Learning Agreement for 24-25, CLIU 21 and the SLSD agreement for Trans Perfect Remote Interpreter Products and Services, CLIU 21 Overdrive Consortium Agreement, CLIU 21 Order Agreement for Brain Pop, Learning A to Z quote, and that concludes that. That's item G. It's a bunch of annual renewals, and if anyone has any questions, I'm just looking for, does anybody object if I take those together? We're still welcome to ask questions and discuss. Seeing no objections, can I have a motion for items 5A through G?
So moved.
All right, I'm going to take, Ms. Cruz beat you to it, but I can take Ms. Candy Cruz and Chris Wyack for a first and then a second. Any questions or comments on any of these items? Mr. Carney?
On B,
Yes.
the bylaws, sometimes when policy comes to us, there's red lines through it. So I didn't see any red lines through the bylaws. These aren't new though. So were there any changes from?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Is it just an annual update needed from an expiration standpoint? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on any of those items? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, I assume unanimously. I can hear Chris really well. I can't hear Nicole quite as well. Nicole, are you still there?
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay, great. Sorry, the mic didn't pick up. Sorry about that. All right, moving on to item 6, special education and student services. We have the CLIU 21 school for the 24-25 school year, school district notice of adoption of policies. This just has to do with compliance with IDEA policies between the two entities. Can I have a motion for that? Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Second.
Thank you for the second, Ms. Torba. Any questions or comments on those? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Heard that one. Great. Opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful. Motion carries. Technology. On to the item that Dr. Mahan mentioned earlier, the purchase of district laptop computers. To authorize administration to purchase 300 MacBook computers at an approximate cost of $1,156 per unit for the purpose of replacing current laptops for district staff. This was a discussion at the technology committee. If there are any, well, I guess I'll have a motion first, just for the purchase of those units in a second, and then we can have any questions or commentary. A motion?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Second, thank you, Ms. Torva. All right, if there's a question or commentary or updates about...
Quickly, I have a question. Dr. Mahan, on this, what happens to the old ones? Could you just embellish that point? Thanks.
Yes, Mr. Mon, the old computers have a residual value on average we're estimating. And that's a very important point, right? On average, we're estimating of about $320. And so some of the computers we will resell and get, the residual value of $360. However, we also have an inventory of student computers that have gone past their warranty. And those computers have a residual value of about $500. And as we've been looking at the cost of replacement and also the cost of new computers, we're thinking that we are going to have to withhold some of the staff computers to act as spares because because they're Apple, to repair a screen is about $400. And while they repair the screen that comes back is still functional, the device itself, its value is, it's questionable as to whether it's good sense. But the alternative is to either buy new ones at $1,156, or there's a limited market for refurbished Macs at around $700, $800. So we're trying to still get that allocation. We've had some further discussion about student devices, and the committee and the administration are kind of going back to find the best approach there. And so if we do not replace any student devices, we're probably going to have to withhold a higher number of the staff devices, which are actually a year older than the student devices. And so we're still working on that question, but in short answer, some of them will go back, will get the resale value of about $320, and each computer is evaluated individually. And some we will retain to address breakage, which is typical during the course of the year.
Yes, Ms. Reinhardt. Could you turn your mic on, folks in the audience? I'm sure at home they can't.
Replacing MacBooks with MacBooks.
Yes, our
Okay.
teachers have MacBooks now, older versions.
No,
I think
I thought these were for administration staff.
no, these are for professional staff. These are for
Professional
teachers.
staff. Okay,
Yes.
so everybody's using MacBooks. And can I just understand why we're choosing MacBooks over the other platforms or options?
Yes. We actually looked at every possible alternative, Chromebooks, iPads, PCs, and MacBooks. And part of that discussion was surveying staff. And we found, and while there are many reasons, the overwhelming driver of this is that there was an overwhelming number of our staff members who expressed very strong satisfaction with their MacBooks. In fact, 40% of the staff, they don't want to let it go, right? They have one, they like it so much that they don't want to let that one go. But I think 96 or 97% of the staff, given many alternatives, said that they want their MacBook. And so we anecdotally thought that was the case. And when we did the survey, our people they are connected to their MacBooks, and we think we need to support them in their work.
Yes, Ms. Torba.
I would just like to add, administration, thank you, working with the technology committee in researching the options to understand the best decision to make for our staff devices. And I think we have a little flexibility on that unit price based on some of that sellback and how we do that. So we do have flexibility on that unit price that you do see there in the agenda. So there could be a reduction or some savings as well. And Ms. Reinhardt, some of the thing to add to Dr. Mann's response to your question, some of our courses, as you heard today with the robotics students, some of their software they are using in their coursework are related and affected by the devices that they're using. So we made that decision to stick with what aligns with our curriculum and enhances our instruction.
Any other questions before we vote on this item? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much, unanimously. All right, moving on to Budget and Finance Treasurer's Report. I have a few items here. Does anyone mind if I take the Treasurer's Report, skipping, so item A, and then skipping the proposed final budget, because that, I believe, requires a roll call vote. So item A, item C, appointment of the solicitor for continuation of services, item D, appointment of the auditor for the school district, and item E, approval of bonding of board officers for the treasurer and secretary. Anybody mind if I take items A, C, D, and E together at this time? Seeing no objections, can I have a motion to that effect?
So
Did it-
moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mon.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. All right, so all those, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to, I'm just going to take this in order then. We have the adoption of the 2020-24-25 proposed final budget. There was a presentation made at our prior board meeting by Mr. Pepe. Mr. Pepe, thank you for that. It is my understanding that nothing in this preliminary proposal has changed since that presentation. Mr. Pepe is saying that's correct. And just for the good of the order and as an explanation, Pennsylvania State Code required, well, maybe not code, but it's required that we vote on a proposed final budget and then give a waiting period and before we vote on a final budget. So this proposed final budget is not our final budget, as the case may be. It is a proposed budget and items can change between the two, but we need to get that waiting period in and just give the public a time to respond to what we've proposed. So with that explanation, Mr. Pepe, anything more at this time on that item?
No,
right. Thank you. Could I have a motion before we get into discussion? I'm sorry, was that Chris? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wayok, for the motion. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mond. I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this item before we vote? No? I had, I'm sorry, Mr. Carney, I missed you. Go ahead.
So my concern is, I like the budget. I like that there's no tax increase, no proposed tax increase, but I've heard a lot from the music and theater, and I didn't know if there's any change budgetary wise for next year in looking at last year.
I mean, I'm hearing that there isn't any change, but
If you want to, I mean, I could try that, or Mr. Pepe, it's.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the question. The one thing to think about is with the budget in total, at this point, it represents a good, fair
where we expect to be and where we are. Any of those discussions really do not preclude us from adjusting within the year, as a budget is never fixed. It is simply a budgetary estimate. I haven't heard or seen anything that concerns me as far as the board's ability and or administration's ability to make any modifications as we get into the budget year, if that helps you.
Yeah, and what I would say is that this budget is what?
Microphones.
What else do we need there,
New,
Mr.
new
Pepper?
mics, apparently.
New mics, okay. This, what I will tell you is that we will support our play and our music department, that we will have sufficient, we admire and encourage and absolutely are excited about the amazing things that happen in our drama department, and that we will have funds more than sufficient to fund our play. And now, as we move forward, we may have to look at what account is charged to where, but in the end, we will have sufficient funds, more than sufficient funds, to make sure that our plays are well-resourced and that we are able to deliver great performances that reflect the great work of our students.
So this is my first time approving a budget,
Sure,
looking at the
sure.
budget. So there is no specific line item. This is just a general budget. There's nothing specifically that I could look at a line item at this point in this budget tonight that says
Well-
there's a change in the music theater funding.
Well,
correct in that.
Right.
As I had stated, and Dr. Mann is saying, at this point, the budget as it is constructed with the expenditures, the summary, and the detail has not changed. So any of the discussions that we are hearing moving forward, still we have the ability to make those adjustments even after you pass the budget. These are not things that are going to be critical to whether or not this budget passes or fails, if that makes any sense to you.
And what, right, and if I could just add to that, right? We have, like, right now, the budget, the play, for example, is funded in a way that it has been for many, many, many years, right? And that means that some of the funds are contained in the student activity account, and some of the funds are contained in the general fund, like from the central office, so to speak, right? And clearly, if you look at the funds that are allocated from the central office, it's grossly insufficient to support the operation of the play. Grossly. We wouldn't even pretend to say it is, right? However, when you look at the funds, and I'm not sure why it was arranged this way, and I'm not sure anybody here ever had anything to do with it, because it's a budget thing, right? It's kind of a central thing, and I'm not criticizing it. It's just that's how it was, right? But the ticket sales, and that's the largest part of the student activity account, is a separate account, and the ticket sales are put into there along with, like, for instance, the refreshment stand and that kind of thing. Now, right, we should not be relying on, the sales of Snickers bars to fund the play, right? And while parents do it, and they're very grateful, and we're very grateful, apparently the money goes into the student activity account. That's not something that we should be asking parents to do. It's something they should not feel obligated to do. And it should not be driving the play. So when we look at ticket sales and revenue, I think it's very fair to say revenue should come to the school district to help offset the cost of the play. And when you look at this year, right, there is $30,000 in the account, in addition to the 12 or 17 that is already in there. And when we sit down with our drama person, our director, at the start of the year, the start of the play, we talk to them about what is it we need for this year, right? Because maybe a play that's heavily associated with music might need a music director, right? A play that is less a musical and more of a drama might need other particular types of support from, like a choreographer or not, whatever it happens to be. So we sit with the moderator and we ask about how can we meet the needs given the constraints, which are wide, in our budget. As Mr. Pepe said, to the extent that needs are expressed to us that go beyond what we would typically see as the constraints of the budget, we are now in a position to meet those needs. And we wish to engage in that conversation. We have the resources available. And yes, I think if we're sitting here next year and we're looking at funding, you may see a larger amount in the general fund with respect to revenue and a much larger amount in the general fund with respect to expenses. But that really is an accounting thing. But know that we are committed to making sure that the people in the play are successful and the support they get from the school district is consistent with the efforts that they're putting in.
Any other comments? I have some, but go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking, thank you for sharing that. And if help me understand how we then meet with, because we're hearing every meeting for the past few months, community members speaking about the arts and music and needing more funding and paying for things on their own. We're hearing that. And then nobody is comparing against athletics, but then that's where my brain goes. We are successful in athletics and in the arts. And we have an athletic director, so I'm assuming like those coaches then meet with athletic director, these are our needs, and then that administrator, the AD, brings forth to work with central office to figure that out. How does that work then with the arts? Because I don't know if there's a comparable person, or is like the choir directors coming, the jazz society, I just learned we have that. I don't know what that is, but it sounds way cool. I want to be part of it. Like, does that make sense? My question, how do we help them?
Yeah, I don't know. There we go. So just to start that conversation, you're exactly right. There is a conversation that starts through an administrator, and that would be whether it's at the middle school we're talking about, or in this case, the high school, that would start through the high school principal. So I think a lot of these things that have been brought up that make sense will certainly be evaluated, and whether or not there's adjustments for next year's budget at the budget time, which would be really in the fall for those conversations, so that when I meet with that building principal, those items are made into the line item considerations at budget time. I think at this point, since the budget had already been struck, any of the additions would simply be adjustments to the ongoing budget. And that's what I was trying to get through. So at this point, we're not going back to reformat the high school's portion of that budget, because that's already been formulated, but it doesn't preclude us and or administration from making adjustments as we go into the next budget.
And I would further say, to better understand the process, and this is something we would share with board members, but not with the public, right? We have ample correspondence and communications between Mr. Miller, who has done an excellent job in trying to make sure that the students have what they need when it comes to the performance. And we could, demonstrate, and we could do it by email or however, to show how that process works and how administration has candidly endeavored to support the play and has communicated to those involved that, we want to support this endeavor. But obviously there are certain rules and constraints that we must follow with respect to student clearances and how to adopt a contract and how we can hire people. And again, I think in sharing that correspondence or having that discussion, which would encourage any board member to call and have, I think that people may come out of that discussion feeling more at ease that what we're saying here is not just words, but rather truly a reflection of our commitment to support the great work of our drama people.
Anyone else? I, as a former theater parent and current sewer, I know y'all's inseams. I will say that I had a conversation with Dr. Mann and about this item and about some specifics about it. And one of the things that, as you mentioned tonight, I'm glad you mentioned it tonight, Dr. Mann, that the line item of, I believe we said $12,000, if you want to get into specifics, for high school theater is, as you said, insufficient to fund, and you completely acknowledge that. And so my comment, my perspective that I shared with you was that if folks in the program see that as the line item on the budget that they have to work with, and we all acknowledge and recognize that is insufficient, what can we put a number on that line that reflects what is truly necessary? And you did explain the general fund and other funding sources, but I think as someone who has been involved in that organization and in other organizations throughout the district, be it music or STEAM projects or STEM projects or activities, and other extracurricular and co-curricular items, I think that it's reasonable for folks to have concern that the line item on the budget is acknowledged to be insufficient. And so I think individuals who are coming to us over the course of weeks and months and frankly years to express their concern is that they feel that they are being put in a position on an annual basis to ask, and I think the words tonight were beg, for that kind of funding. And when you're up against having to ask for that every year, and when funding comes out of the student activity budget funds a lot of other things. So then it puts administrators and building principals who do a great job. I agree. Mr. Miller does a great job of funding all those activities, but it puts folks in a position where you're using one fund to fund many different aspects, and you can't satisfy everyone's needs if you don't have it earmarked or allocated. Nobody can really count on necessarily, and they're nervous about where they're going to get that funding. And so I understand that. I appreciate that. I understand that you fully fund the arts and that you spend well more than $12,000 on, the theater program at the high school. But I've also experienced the feeling that the money has to be found every year, and it impedes planning in a way. And every year you have to tailor it to your needs. So that's what I have to say about that specific item. But I think it transfers to what I wanted to say about all of these items for this preliminary budget. And there are a lot of different, Mr. Carney said, no, there isn't a specific minutia or a line item you can look to. It's a general preliminary budget. But the conversations we've had over the past month and a half, 2 months as a board going into this are what I use to help inform me about what this preliminary budget has planned. And so while they aren't line items, like Dr. Mann shared that about class sizes, for instance, and school counselor ratios. So for me, when I'm thinking about this preliminary budget tonight, voting yes for this preliminary budget means voting yes to things like that $12,000 high school theater budget when we know the costs are higher and they come from somewhere else. But admittedly, it's not laid out. It's not explained to the folks who are concerned. It means voting yes to having the Music Parents Booster Organization pay for, as they've said before, new instruments and instrument repair, and pay for sheet music and banners for students to hold while they march and play in co-curricular performances in our community. It means voting yes to this budget means saying yes to potential kindergarten through third grade class size limits of 26 to 28 students. And it means voting yes to no, stated limit for 4th through 12th grade. And I appreciate that candor, but that's what helps me inform me as a board member about the vote. It means voting yes to the highest student to school counselor ratio of any district in the area, with a ratio of 800 to 1 at our intermediate school. It means voting yes to increasing athletic coaching salaries to about $450,000, while academic, extracurricular, and co-curricular coaching salaries will be about $100,000 to $110,000. It means voting yes to the highest technician to student ratio of any district with one-to-one technology in our area. And I'm not naive to the fact that changing the funding for all those items I've just mentioned is expensive. It's an expensive wish list. And I don't expect to be able to come up with a budget that funds them all. But the consumer price index has increased almost 20% over the past 5 years. And district budget allocations, particularly in STEAM opportunities, as we've heard tonight, have not kept pace. So by voting yes to this preliminary budget, that is also voting yes to all those things I've just mentioned. And while I understand it's probably unrealistic to hit all of those wish list items, I'm not okay I'm not okay with a yes vote for myself without at least looking at what it would take to fund those items differently. And I'm not voting no to a 0% tax increase, and I'm not voting no. I'm just my vote tonight, from everything I've been informed and going into this, my preliminary budget vote is a no vote because just simply by the way in which I've heard that we are slicing the pie without considering different options. And I've had conversations and I've raised those items about class sizes and counselor ratios and theater funding and music funding, but I'm not a yes vote because that doesn't reflect what I feel that my fiduciary responsibility to this community is.
Just
So I'm a no for those reasons.
to try and help give you a little bit of context with respect to the theater requests. So the reason that I'm saying that it's not a problem with approving the budget as far as the requests go, they're basically in three categories. Personnel costs that run around $12,000, they would all be tied to a collective bargaining agreement because you can't just put the stipends in, that has to be into the agreement.
I hear what you're saying. I'll let you finish.
Okay. The other part, supplies are around $10,000 on a $76 million budget. That's not necessarily an impediment because as we go into the budget, as it is determined that there is an additional need, we would simply make the expenditure. And if the account ends up being overdrawn, it would be covered somewhere else in the budget where we had any money left over. The equipment is between 15 to 20,000. And as we have done in the previous year and you're seeing tonight, as we get towards the end of that budget year, if we're sitting with good fund balance or the ability to make end of year purchases, we could still end up capturing those equipment items in the same year in which they weren't necessarily a budget line item. So all I'm trying to explain to you is overall, as far as the budget's concerned, by approving the budget tonight and the final budget, even if it's still no adjustments made, it doesn't preclude you from doing any of the expenditure items that you're looking at doing. That's all.
I just appreciate that clarity. The $12,000 on the line item on the theater you said is for staffing. It was my understanding it's not for staffing. I don't. That's for budgetary because.
Those would be stipended positions, and they're allocated as such.
Well, okay, yes, the stipended positions, but they're in the CBA. However, all of those positions are not in the CBA. There's an ancillary schedule that contains a lot of the positions you just named, like lighting coordinator and choreographer. I only know.
But
because-
again, I don't get involved in those. That
No.
would be
completely.
If it's something that you end up doing, the budget can handle it, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Totally. And what I'm saying, I thought what you were saying was we can't change those. I thought I heard you say, maybe I misunderstood, but we can't change them because the CBA dictates them. But the CBA does not dictate all of the theater positions. There's an ancillary schedule. Like for instance, the ancillary schedule contains what we pay for athletic events, ticketing agents. We pay people to collect tickets and money at athletic events. That's in the ancillary schedule, not the CBA. And by comparison, theater parents collect ticketing money and tickets for those. So we could make stipend positions. I wasn't talking about stipend positions for that particular item. I didn't think, but it's not all contained in the CBA. Any other comments before we take that vote?
Well, I have a comment, Ms. Gaiman, respectfully. What happened previous to this year and it's suddenly happening within the past months? I'm still confused as to why some of these issues hadn't happened previously and they weren't brought up previously. That's the only thing I can't understand. As from a budgeting standpoint, this has been happening for years, well before this administration was here. So my question is, if that budgeting was identical to what's happening now, Why is that? And why wasn't it changed before? That's where I'm sitting.
Thanks, appreciate the question. Two things. One, when I was sitting on this board years ago, we didn't have folks coming to the microphone saying we need, and they felt somehow sufficiently supported financially and from a planning perspective that I never, as a board member, had anyone coming to a mic or approaching me in a community or approaching me in the giant parking lot. That's one. But two, as I mentioned, part of what I was, and I appreciate the chance to say it again, is the consumer price index has increased almost 20% over the past 5 years. That's just 5 years. That's pre-COVID. We didn't even have theater during COVID. Governor shut that down. But previous to right now, like construction costs, you all know how much lumber's gone up. Lumber and set costs have gone up 40%. Paint has gone up. Clothing has gone up. Consumer price index has increased 20%. So the purchasing power of what might have been a very sufficient budget, or for whatever reason, they felt that they knew where their money was coming from and they didn't need to come and ask for it. That's why that my position then is different than my position now. Are we having mic difficulty? Oh, we're switching out Mr. Pepe's mic. That's a smart decision right there. Perfect. Do I have any other questions or comments before we take this vote?
I'll just offer just a practical observation, and that is, I mean, obviously I don't know where the vote will come down, but if we vote down the preliminary budget, I'm suggesting, like, what do? We need a plan because we have a 30-day window, and like, are we going to meet next week? I mean, I really do think that this, I mean, not having ever faced this before, I would tell you that it is a worry because we have to get a budget done by June 30th. And if we vote it down tonight, I don't know if we will. This is the first I've heard of, anyone's desire to vote no. Then the question is, my thought always was, once a budget is voted no, we just schedule continual board meetings every day until we actually get a budget, because it is that important. And so if the board votes this budget down, I'm suggesting that beginning on Monday next week, we just schedule a series of board meetings every night until we have a preliminary budget, because if we don't do that, we're going to run into trouble with the final budget as well.
And I thought about that before,
Can I ask a
going
question?
into this, right, in one moment, yes. I thought about that in going into this decision. And I would much rather, it would be disingenuous of me to vote yes on this and say, yes, but I'd like to see these other things in the future. I'm clearly stating where I stand, and that's part of what a preliminary budget is. But I would much rather be in the position of not being comfortable with a preliminary budget 2 months or a month and a half out from when we need to have one than voting yes to a preliminary budget insincerely, and then for the final budget not being satisfied with any changes that might or might not have taken place. And the next time we come to schedule vote is June 24th, and then we're kind of really stuck up against it. Now, June 30th, the state will keep coming and bugging us and saying, when are you going to pass this? And some school districts' answer is, when are you going to pass yours, Harrisburg? So, there's been some history in the past in other districts, not here, but I would much rather have that happen now when we are 45 days out than when we are 4 days out. And I considered that fully. And the administration has time to, adjust and address. And
It would certainly make more sense to pass the preliminary final budget tonight, and given the comments, give us the opportunity to adjust the budget if necessary before it comes back before you as the final. You're not talking big money here that's really moving things. It would be more problematic at this point not to approve it. And that's just a pragmatic approach to it.
Mary Joy, did you have a question?
Mr. Pepe, I'm going to ask real basic questions. So I apologize on this, maybe just to reel my brain in, just so that we can ensure, so that I understand past this and we can move forward. We need it by June 30th. Understand that. But to ensure we have staffing in place with the staffing student ratio that aligns to meet, Commonwealth targets, student teacher staff ratios, support staff to student ratios. We heard a lot about the, counselor, social worker, those things. When we hear that, and when I hear that, maybe that's just me, I press pause. Do we have the right staffing in place? So to move forward, even if we pass this tonight and then we realize in the next few weeks before June 30th, oh my goodness, we need to make some changes. And maybe even after June 30th, we realize we need staffing here. Our numbers are exaggerated, whatever the scenario, just to ensure we have a safe learning environment. I guess my question is, how do we handle those things? And I apologize if it's a very elementary
Yeah, Ms.
question.
Turba, the other week, Dr. Mahan went through the ratios and that we were meeting targeted ratios, and that if that changes throughout a budget year, that the administration would balance and accommodate that accordingly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that was going to be my response too, based on
Correct,
Dr. Mann's comments. Go ahead.
And that was specifically related to elementary class size, where we said if we pass the budget and then in July, for example, people are transferring in and we see that a class size exceeds or hits the 26 number, then we would add a staff person irrespective of whether that person was in the budget or not, which they would not be at that point, because that was our commitment to that situation.
So if I'm to understand, the budget is a planning tool. It's not a static document. So if we want to make changes throughout the year as a board, we are able to do that at any meeting.
I guess I'm coming from
You know,
a
to
proactive.
to answer that question, it's a great question, actually. Once we strike the budget, it's based on what we know at the time. And when you look at any budget, personnel and benefits is really what runs your budget, not supplies.
Right.
So if we get into the year, as Dr. Mann said, you could have a lot of move-ins where he turns around and says, you know what, we need to have another first grade. So then he would turn around and decide we're hiring another first grade teacher, whether they were budgeted for or not. And then I would have to adjust to that. And remember, that's another reason why we carry our fund balance. So that if we had a year where we got hit with some real unforeseen conditions that put a real strain on the budget, and at the end of the year, we closed out in a deficit, which has happened in the past year, then the auditor would simply come in and pull off the fund balance. And when you look at the assigned fund balance, then you have the unassigned fund balance. So we wouldn't have that problem.
Right. And I'm going to maybe offer a little more restrictive thought than that, because budgets are real and I take them, and as we all do, very seriously. I take it more seriously than most. I will tell you that flat out. Right. Now, if we have, God forbid, a catastrophic year in health coverage for our employees, right? We pay the bills. I mean, based on our insurance, we pay the bills of our employees. So if we have experience, we're going to pay them the same way. If we have, as we always hope, a good year where employees are healthy, our rates go down, right? To use a real example, although a smaller one, if we have a very, very cold winter, we're going to turn the heat up and we're not going to cut because we only have so much budgeted, right? And if we have a warmer winter, we like the fact that we won't have to spend as much on heat, right? However, we should not look at our fund balance as a cushion, all right? And we need to have budgetary discipline, okay? Because we can't just raise taxes in October, right? Or that kind of thing, right? And so, we need to have good discussions. This budget, right, is heavily funded, right? We have some capacity, some flexibility. We are not at a time where, I was cutting purchasing in midwinter because I was worried about making the budget, because we did that too, right? There were times where we were rolling back because if revenues are not meeting, if revenues are lagging or expenses are higher, we stop, right? Particularly when we have years and years of experiencing where we're overspending our budget and eating into the fund balance. So budgets are important, right? Yes, there's some flexibility around the edges, but at the core, we shouldn't be adding people if we don't think we're going to add them, right? And we should add them if we think we are. And if we are deciding to add people, we have to recognize that is ongoing recurring costs, and we have to look at the tax number too. Okay, and so that's the reality of it. And administration is exceedingly comfortable with where we are. Speaking for myself, and I think for the others, we are good where we are with respect to meeting the needs and also holding the line. And where that falls for others is up to them. But I believe this budget more than meets the needs of our students and gives the board some flexibility and administration flexibility during the course of the year.
And I just want to say, I want to express my gratitude for you for in your planning and being very forthright about that. And you have, stated this budget accounts for what class sizes are and those cutoffs and those limits and what you'll do. And you'll absolutely hire another teacher when you hit those. Part of my, philosophical and also as my fiduciary responsibility to the community and the needs is looking at that and saying that I am not comfortable with a kindergarten class size of 26 or 27 or 28. But you have been very forthright. I do not mean to say that I was not given that information. Yeah. And I'm not comfortable with a student to school counselor ratio of 800 to 1. And you and I have had a conversation. I'm also not comfortable with not putting what we think we're going to spend on a theater budget line item or a music budget line item. When we know we're going to spend more, I'm not comfortable putting a lower number on there because I just don't think it's as much planning as we could do in that regard. That's all. And vote your conscience.
In all fairness, that has not been happening as far as we talked about reality-based budgeting. And when I sit and meet with the building principals, if there's a concern, I say, I do not want you to under budget a reality, because all that's going to do is put us in a situation where now we need to unfortunately do a transfer that we didn't necessarily need to do. But never underestimate our administrative ability to reallocate resources, which we do all the time, and we do it very well based on changes in need that come up. All I'm saying is, as far as that part of the conversation tonight, I certainly would not vote against the budget for that because it's really not a material impact. When you start talking about numbers of teachers or positions or things like that, that's beyond my scope. I don't put that part into the budget. All I can tell you is currently, as the superintendent has stated, everything is in the budget that is necessary for us to operate the district without question and without problem.
And again, I'm not certainly arguing anything, but a couple of things that perhaps might be helpful in this. I think the board did a great job in supporting an outside person to come in to look at our student support services. And those student support services include counselors, but also our social workers, also our school psychologists, and also our school nurses. And so looking at, and because we recognize, and we've actually put this forth as a district goal, right? This is a department we need to look at, right? And because if there's a school where there's a concerning number of, a concerning ratio of school counselors to students, we would look at what also other services are present in that building with respect to assignment. That was the whole point of this, hiring the outside individual who kind of knows this kind of stuff, to not just say it's just the counselors, but we're looking at this from a collective point of view. And we will be having recommendations. Now, not obviously for this budget, but the idea is that we will look at this holistically and then allocate our resources in the next budget year because we recognize this is an issue, right? With respect to the play, right? I mean, I know that there's two different accounts, and that is, some concern about where is the money here, there. That's an accounting issue, right? And we've been dealing with many, many accounting issues going on. And, I think next year when we're sitting here, we could say, all right, look, we shut down the student activity account. We tag the ticket numbers as revenue to the general fund, and then we charge the general fund whatever the revenue is to come up with a budget that ultimately, I mean, a number was thrown out, $50,000, right? We're if you take all the line outs, we're at like 43 right now for that, right? And we're not even talking about how we meet the specific needs of whatever play is picked next year, right? So, I mean, yes, it might be better. And we all agree. I'm uncomfortable. I said from the beginning, I'm not really comfortable how this is all charted out, but we can address that. But I think it is an important distinction, but without really a difference in the amount of funding that is actually present there. And so, you know, I respect what people have to say about, do we need this? Do we need that? I do. And I don't want to be sitting in a place that, well, you know, I'm the Ebenezer with the adding machine, but we try to make some balance between, you know, providing the services and also being kind of responsible on the fiscal side of things. And we're happy to engage in that conversation. And I don't care if we have a budget hearing every night. I really don't. Happy to do it, right? But I also think we have to develop, you know, a clear direction for administration to respond to here, and understand that, you know, there'll be different perspectives on this whole thing, and it will likely be very, very time consuming given the voices that need to be heard from this board.
And the last thing that I can add is anything that was put forward in requesting under the theater budget, the music budget, was all approved in the budget. Nothing was cut from what was requested in the initial budgets. So if that needs to be adjusted moving forward, that certainly will be entertained. And as I said to you, you know, I know what I'm talking about. It's not a problem for us to adjust within the year, even if the budget is approved as is. That's all.
Agreed with that. I mean, when you start looking at that budget ratio, as I mentioned with the wrestling, it's from an average salary, it's $45 if you were to equate it. But the fact of the matter is, I don't understand how we can have a disconnect right now between a club that has a budget that was submitted. I'm assuming there was a complete budget submitted. Is that the case? That's the first thing. Okay. Because it's been sounding as if there was no approval. And you're saying, if I understand correctly, the budget was submitted and the budget was approved for the arts.
Yeah. And Mr. Mott, I would be very happy to discuss that. And I get a little concerned when because there are people connected to both ends of that conversation. And
yeah, there's a disconnect.
I very much wish to provide the best information that I possibly can without talking about the individual people who are involved in any aspect of what it is.
And the
we're
fact
doing.
of the matter
and
is
I would be
right
happy
now-
to provide that information as I have to some others.
That's great. And then as far as it's concerned right now, regardless of the general ledger accounts, if I were to put it in accounting terms, there's a basic budget of $43,000 or so for the performances, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
44,330.
Okay. So it's not $11,000
No, there's
because you have to take the other items in the different accounts and total them.
yeah, and
right?
that's just what's in the student activity fund.
Right.
That's not the
Okay.
part that's in the general fund.
It's important, I think, to clarify.
Right. And from student comment and parent comment and volunteer comment from the last board meeting, and from discussions I've had about the accounting, some of those funds that you're quoting in that music, in that student activity, in that general fund were raised by parents. So parents bought Snickers bars and apples and flowers and sodas, and they sold one-liners in programs saying, you know, good luck, Johnny, Susie, Sophie. And then they collected those funds and they turned them in at the high school office. And so the funds reflected in that count are from ticket sales, and they're from my husband going to the dollar store and buying movie box pop like candy for the concessions. And yeah, Mr. Carney knows this story. So to say that those funds were available is to say that the funds that the parents, in part, not in full, turned into the high school office were provided to them. But I also don't think that the number of tickets that are sold should determine, you know, how much we're saying is in that
But just to
account.
make this easy for you, I think I already had alluded to that this needs to get approved tonight to give us the ability to take that comment into consideration And I'm only talking about this aspect of it because this isn't easy to adjust before it comes back to the final. Okay. But if you don't approve it tonight, it's way more problematic.
I understand. And Lou, you have been nothing but informative and collaborative and cooperative. And my vote is no reflection on your preliminary budget, but
No, I understand that. I'm talking about
the overall, yeah,
overall board.
the overall board, the preliminary budget. I've brought these things up before and I've said these things. Whoops, did I turn off my mic? All right. I will say that I would much rather be in this place and reflect a genuine vote than get to that position in late June where if they aren't there, then we're really stuck. I'd much rather have as difficult as it might be. And it's not that this is the first night you're hearing these things. I brought up class size. I brought up counselor ratios. I brought up funding for music, and they weren't put in the budget, this preliminary budget, which is fine. I am one board member, but I am clearly stating this is my position and this is my vote. And, you're all welcome to do the same. But I understand everything you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm not addressing any of your other issues.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the theater part.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And you're not addressing any of my other ratios or anything else I've talked about. Totally understood. And that's all. Like, this is not the first night this is being heard out of my mouth. I've had, conversations with other folks.
Well, it is the first time though that it's in your mouth about the budget and the approval. We talked about it a little bit in the previous meetings, but there was no follow on with it. I'm quite frankly a little surprised that we're talking about it just before the vote. I mean, we should talk about that more before the vote.
Steve,
I mean, that's
I'm on the same page with you. I totally
But
agree.
you're the president of the board, so
Yeah.
you could have easily brought this up.
No.
right?
Listen, I totally agree. Well, on my mic. Whenever I brought it up, I have had Dr. Mann, as he invited you, to have one-on-one conversations with him to explain this. And so I have had those, and this is the conclusion I have reached. So we have not had, so I think in a way, you're absolutely right. For all board members to have access to the same conversations and the same information at the same time is what we need, and how we ended up in this place is we don't have enough of that. But I can't vote yes to this just because, but I have had those conversations and I have done those research, but it's always offered as a one-on-one instead of this collaborative conversation. And this is the time, right? This is the time we had to do it. So here I am. That's all.
I will say, in fairness, you never said, look, this is going to impair me from voting on the budget. We've had some conversations and they have been not in the depth that we have, for instance, with respect to class size. I just want to be fair about this, right? Never did we say, well, if we move from 26 to 25, I would be pleased with that, or 23. What would be the cost from going to 26 to 22? I mean, those are conversations we're very happy to have. They never existed. We said, well, 26 may be high, but as far as understanding the depth of concern and understanding, providing feedback about cost, about alternate, those conversations did not occur.
No, but when I've raised an issue about those line items, you have told me that I'm one of 9, and I appreciate and understand that. So one person could not say to you, like me having a one-on-one conversation with you about how I feel about class size is not going to impact the overall
Yes,
preliminary budget.
no, it would, and I would not have said to any board member here, dismissive of a concern, to say, well, you're just one of 9, right? And if we sat and we said there's 26 classes and we'd like to go to 22 or 21 or 20, I would love to have class sizes maxed at 20. And I would sit and we would say, well, this is the calculation. This is how many people. This is the cost. Maybe this is the impact. We have never, ever had any conversation like that, nor have we been informed as an administration that votes about budgets are contingent upon moving up or down on that scale. And ultimately, it is true that if we said, look, I really believe it should be 20. And if we said, look, here's some costs related to it. And if my sense was that that wasn't where everyone was, then I would come back to the board and say, look, there's been some suggestions that maybe we go down, here's some cost to it. And then we could have, as part of our budgetary work, actually engage in that conversation. And so, again, I know we have had conversations, but I don't want it to be thought that we had the type of level or depth of conversation that perhaps some might think as far as your implications.
Mrs. Gaiman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carney.
I just wanted to compliment the people that worked on the budget. It's not a complaint against the budget. And the reason I asked my question tonight is because I figured this is the budget discussion and I have budget questions. And that's how come I mentioned it tonight. I still feel a little bit uncomfortable that wherever the communication breakdown was, that there are things being asked for that are said to be minimal, but I'm worried about approving this. I'm hearing that there's enough money, but it seems like there was enough money last year too. And it's still not being, it still hasn't been taken care of, but that's where I'm coming from. And can I call the question or no?
Sure. I mean, everybody has had ample time to talk. There's no problem with calling the question. All right, good. We're all in agreement, it looks like. All right, so I believe this is requiring a roll call vote, or at least to be on the safe side, we are going to conduct it as a roll call vote, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Anne Marie Lobley to call our names so that we can vote.
Yes, with a lot of follow-up.
Andy Cruz,
Yes, same reservations, Melissa, but I think we can work through it.
Stephen Maud,
Aye.
Christopher Wyatt,
Aye.
Eric Boyer,
With everything that has been discussed and with what Lou has mentioned about revisiting these items here, I am a yes on this one.
Nicole King,
Yes.
Emily Gainer,
No.
Timothy Carney.
No, but hoping that the reservations that I have can be worked out.
Same, Mr. Carney. Oh, okay. Just record show that Dr. Wayak is exiting the meeting at this time from an attendance perspective. But Ms. King, you are still with us, yes?
What?
That's enough. I just need to know you could still hear us. You were still with us. Dr. Wayak is leaving the meeting, but you are staying on. All right. Motion carries.
And I
Preliminary
can tell you,
budget passed.
we have a very strong desire for the board to be comfortable with our budget, right? And we have a lot of time between now and the end of the year. And if we need, truly, right, if we need to schedule 4 meetings a week or 5 on a Friday if we need to, right, and 2 over the weekend, we are happy to do so to address these. We are at the service of the board when it comes to this. We just need a couple days to get stuff in the paper, and because they are to be public. And then if any individual people want to come in to talk about specifics, we're very happy to have you. If you want some information about the play, just send me an email and I could share some of the correspondence that I've shared with some of the board members, because we wish, I mean, you have to vote on this budget. If tonight was a difficult vote, we hope that the final budget will be an easier one, having taken good use of the time between now and then.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item F, election of a board treasurer. Section 504 of the Public School Code dictates that in the month of May, we need to elect a treasurer to serve for 1 year, beginning the first day of July. And so at this time, I would like to open the floor to nominations for board treasurer. Do we have any nominations for board treasurer?
I nominate Stephen Maud.
I second that nomination.
All right, we have a nomination for Ms. Reinhardt for Stephen Mond and a second for the nomination for Mr. Boyer. Any other nominations at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the floor to nominations. All those in favor of closing nominations, aye? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, great. Seeing as how we only have one candidate for the position, I'll just congratulate you on being our new board treasurer, Mr. Mond. Thank you very much.
Well, that was shocking.
No, I just like to, I've really appreciated Stephen asking excellent questions throughout all of these processes, and I think he'll be an excellent treasurer. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to support services. We have item 9A, a Lehigh Valley Cooperative Purchasing Gasoline Diesel Fuel Bid with several explanatory, this is a well thought out and investigated proposition here. We have item B, EI Associates, the middle school roof project. Item C, the public school facility improvement grant program resolution for SLSD middle school roof project. The item D, the purchase of a new zero-turn mower for grounds department. Item E, the purchase of a Ventrac attachment device for the grounds department. F, purchase of a new Tomcat auto scrubber floor care equipment for Liberty Bell. Item G, request for a proposal and RFP for architectural services for SLHS library. And item H, change order approvals for the high school HVAC project. Does anyone object if I take those all together? We can still discuss any in that litany, but anyone object to taking them all together? Can I have a motion to that
Make
effect?
a motion A to H, or section 9.
All of section 9. Thank you for that motion, Mr. Carney.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Any questions on any of these items? Just identify the letter before you make your comment if you have questions.
I can assume that due diligence was done as far as comparisons and
Yes,
shopping around.
I'm certain that due diligence was
Yes.
done.
Thank you.
Actually, that's why in the resolution, you'll see the note for additional quotes obtained for every piece
Thank
of
you.
equipment. And that hadn't been in the past in the resolutions. We added that this
Appreciate that.
past year.
I just wanted to bring up Ms. Gaiman
Yeah.
on H. We had a great conversation, the facilities committee. The contractor did an excellent job of finding an issue before we got started this summer, and it has saved us time so we'll be finished on time, knock on all wood. So great job picking that contractor.
Not only that, but I mean, I was going to bring it up in the committee meeting, but the fact that it was found now also puts not the high school being in jeopardy without air come end of the summer when teachers and or potentially students come back in the building. So excellent work on behalf of the contractor to do due diligence in order to find that now. So
Great. Yeah. The only question I had was the item immediately preceding that, which was the RFP, architectural services for the library. I understand at facilities, there was some discussion of not only library, but possibly also, because it's in the same corner of the building, investigating auditorium, not overhaul, but the moving of some walls or replanning. Is that embedded in that as well, or is that a separate item?
well, so for right now, it's through our conversation that we had in the meeting. For now, we're going to proceed with the RFP for the library due to the diligence that Dr. Trinkle and Dr. Mann and the rest of the admin have put forth in looking at other ideas and what other facilities and buildings around the valley have done in their libraries as well. The following meeting coming up for facilities, we will be discussing about the auditorium in terms of a structured discussion. And we are not against potentially rolling that into the RFP once a proposal for the library is brought forth. And once we figure out who that is, we will have that conversation potentially at that time when those people are walking through the doors. So we will talk more about that at the next facilities committee meeting, but that's the route we're going.
Thanks. Thanks for answering that. Any other questions, discussion points for these items? All of 9? Any? Yeah, could you turn on your mic?
Instead of looking for a specific architect, can't we be looking for a design build company? There's a lot of savings in doing that. It's a lot more efficient. I'm not on the facilities committee, and I don't want to get into the minutiae here. That's why we have committees, and I would just recommend to the committee that you take a look at contractors who do both. It's usually more cost effective and efficient.
Yep. We discussed that, Mary Joy, at the meeting. We talked about that. For right now, we wanted to proceed with the RFP at least for the library, and then once we have those folks that are in here and we get it down to whichever vendors that are coming in, those are some of the questions that we were going to ask too while we had them in our graces. So,
thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Ms. King, are you with us? I'm sorry, only for the record of the vote. Perfect. Aye. Great. Thank you. All right, moving on to human resources. We already covered item 10A, the collective bargaining agreement passed unanimously. Thank you again to the SLEA and our staff and teachers. Moving on to item B, human resources report. Any highlights, Dr. Ake Little, or retirements? I think I saw two folks
we
with significant
have
years on there.
two retirements. One is a teacher at the IS, Melanie Lisa DeSanctis, after 20 years of service, and a classified staff member. It's actually a Liberty Bell. She's been there for 25 years, Sean McMullen, who is the principal secretary. So I'm sure both of them will be missed. They're main fixtures of their respective buildings. So we thank them for their service.
We do indeed. 20, you say 20 and 25 years respectively, Mrs.
Yes.
DeSanctis and Mrs. McMullen. I heard some sighs and ahs in the audience as students recognize those names in their daily lives, parents too. So we thank them for their service. If you see them in the hallways or the communities, wish them the best in their retirement. And thank you so much for service to the Southern Lehigh community. All right, thank you very much. I guess we'll just, let's just take that one because we're moving on to policy. Can I have a motion to approve of the human resources report?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to district policies. We have a motion to approve the second reading of policies 105, 106, 107, 108. And we have linked there on your agendas, and we have a motion to approve the first reading of policies 105.1, 105.2, 114, 117. Those have been, thank you, linked and provided in the update and the materials prior to the board, and they're linked on the agenda there. Can I have a motion for the second reading of those policies and the first reading of the others?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Any questions or comments, discussion before we vote on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Sorry, Ms. King, I didn't pause.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to committee reports. The policy committee, you're pretty much up to date with those policies that we just passed, so I will pass on that committee report. And the IU meets later this month, so I do not have a report for that. Anyone else have? We voted on a lot of items tonight, so that probably encapsulates a lot of the reports that we have. Any other LCTI updates or?
The thrust of the last meeting was the budget and the audit. The audit was conducted and turned out well. There were some minor adjustments. LCTI is going through some readjustments in the way that they report and work to actual budgeting instead of projected to projected. So that to me is a better approach. It's something that we're doing here. They had various activities of which I can report that out once they send the slides again, but there was a welding competition. They did quite well on that. They were given a list of the design and the materials, different materials, and went through a competition statewide, and were very successful in that. So I think that's really the report. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other committee reports at this time?
I have ACMC. We're meeting this week. We have 3 submissions for approval for continuing ed. And then we have the ed committee will be meeting tomorrow at 4:15. We'll be talking about RFPs, RFQs, or otherwise about kindergarten. So looking forward to that. And in today's morning call, there was a student that repaired a window for, he's from LCTI, I believe. There was an article in today's paper.
Like a public interest item. Yeah, I saw that. That's great. All right. So no other committee reports at this time? I know. We voted. You're good. Covered. Your committee report was on the agenda, Mr. Boyer.
Yeah,
And
actually, the only thing I will add on there, we didn't call out, we looped that in, but we talked about 2 additional projects. One was the middle school roof due to storm damage. This past year, it has increased the damage, and now we've actually started seeing, Mike brought up that the increase in leaks in the auditorium have been noticed. Because of that, that is one of the items that we put forth on the agenda that we want to make sure that we take care, since that's a class 1, I believe, if I recall correctly from our learnings. So that's why that's on there, just so that way for everybody's awareness. And then also we talked about here at the high school, for those of you who aren't familiar, over by the bus loop, we do have an exit on the side of the building where there are stairs. We did talk through the project to revamp or redo that area over there due to, well, the way I'll call it, safety concerns, tripping hazards in regards to what's over there. One of the ideas that was brought forth was, instead of going the route for replacing what's there in kind, due to the fact that we anticipate from local code and inspection that once you touch it, you're going to have to make it up to code. We're going to look at, administration is going to look at the route of just making a ramp. Mr. Mullen brought that up as an alternative solution, instead of going the replacement in kind, which we think that going that route and eliminating concrete and being able to do just a ramp potentially with asphalt might be a lot cheaper from that route. So
We're talking about like the stairs by the high school bus entrance and
next to the
those
library.
brick crumbling kind of walls that are, okay, gotcha. Kind of by the music wing as well. Thank you. All right, thank you. Any update, Ms. Torbo, or you kind of covered in the agenda as well?
Right. We as we voted to refresh our staff devices, the committee and administration will continue to work together to discuss student devices as well, just to align. It's so easy sometimes to make a short-term decision, but you want to make sure that that short-term decision aligns with a long-term plan. So the committee and administration will work together to see that our devices, our technology aligns with curriculum, not only enhancing our instruction, but also enhancing our learning. So we look forward to the next steps on then addressing our needs for our students and their devices and bringing that technology into the classroom and other exciting things. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, that concludes committee reports. Any new business for this evening?
I just want to make a comment about my opinions on the theater program. I don't want to be misinterpreted at all whatsoever. I am in full support of anything that is related to theater, just as much as any other subject or club or sport in the school district. It's just important, I think, for us to tighten up and understand budgets and put together what's needed so that we can clearly make decisions from a budget standpoint. So that's my position. We need to lay out the process, follow the process, and move forward with solutions. I am here for solutions, not roadblocks. We will figure out how best to approach this, and we will come up with a solution that makes sense for the budget and makes sense for the program and makes sense for everybody else. So that's my 2 cents. I know it's not new business. I would call it other business, maybe existing business, but thank you.
So I actually wanted to
Working. There. Is that working, Mr. Boyer? Okay.
So under new business for next meeting, I actually want to see, in regards to all the conversation that has been had prior to us being on the board, as well as since being on the board, in relation to music, student activities budget, and the theater. There's been a lot of things that have been brought forth in public comment, and there's been a lot of things that have been brought forth and emailed directly to the board with administration on their board, on the emails as well. I'd like to see in the next meeting that we actually go through and actually see what is stuff that can be addressed through a proper budgeting process, to what Steve is saying. So that way we can address the needs and concerns for those respective groups and show that we do support those and that we actually put our mouths where they should be. Money where our mouths are.
All right, so a request, this thing is working. A request to specifically address, just so the administration is in a direction. At the next board meeting, you want to see.
I want to see on the next board meeting, I want to see in those respective items, the stuff that has been brought forth or sent to the board. I want to see what we are going to do and what we are going to be able to approve within budget and within reason, that we can address these concerns, or if have been previously addressed.
Okay. Is that enough direction for the next agenda?
I mean, I think that is the plan. We don't have to wait till next meeting, but I also think I could send out some information to the board specifically about the play that might offer some additional insight into this as we prepare for that discussion.
And quite honestly, any adjustments made to the budget, I'm going to have to report back out anyway. So my plan was to update the board at the workshop meeting, and then that will be in place for what is approved at the final. And it's not that difficult.
That's all. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? Anything else new business? So then my mic caught whatever Mr. Pepe's mic was dealing with. All right, seeing none, we have other business. Same deal. I think we covered that.
Other business?
Other business, Mr. Carney. I totally forgot. There you go. Your specialty.
So April 27th, I went to Hopewell and they didn't call it a yard sale, garage sale, it was hidden treasures. And I have one of my hidden treasures on. So thank you for that purchase. April 29th, the middle school STEAM Expo was fantastic. What I really loved, I don't know if there's any Spartech still in here, but I love the mentoring that they did for the younger students and seeing them not just helping with the robotics piece, but what you were talking about, Dr. Mann, about mentoring them as far as communicating to the adults that came in, presenting skills. So that was really neat. Congratulations to the Freddie nominees. I see at least one in the audience too. Thank you. So congratulations to them. The orchestra choir, and again, some of their participants are here. It every year blows me away. They did something where they put the entire choir around the building, the whole auditorium, and it was beautiful. The prayer took my breath away. It just took my breath away. There's somebody that's in the audience too that went to nationals, went to Nebraska just this week, competed in speech nationals, correct? What place did you come in?
So Wyatt and I'm the overall captain. Wyatt Parkinson is the speech captain. We both broke to octo finals, giving us around top 60 out of.
I know. I just asked that.
Probably 170 in Wyatt's event, around 185 people coming from, like Mr. Kearney said, all across the nation. Who had it's quite competitive tournament to qualify for, but yeah, it was Mr. Long's first time going to NITALK, that it's called, in his 32 years of coaching. It was a very great experience.
And I want to apologize to the chair. I don't know if I should have done that to address the audience, like have them. I apologize.
Hey, when we're about celebrating kids and they're in the audience, and Oren did her job, she listen to her shouting out. Listen to Oren shouting out to Wyatt. So that was great. Thank you. We celebrate it. And thanks, Mr. Long, as well. Thanks, Oren. Thanks, Wyatt. Thanks, Mr. Long.
Because of the Ed committee tomorrow, I don't know if I'll get to see the retirees, but congratulations to them. And the very last thing is I always appreciate when students come up and talk their truths. So any students that came up, any parents too, but especially the students that came up, I appreciate you participating in democracy at any time. So thank you.
Great. We have information only.
Oh, Ms. Gaiman, I always like to jump on Mr. Carney.
Please do. I apologize.
His broadcast. JPLIS, the jazz band, orchestra, and concert band performed at a competition. I failed the name of it on Friday. They all won first, the Superior. That's 2 years in a row. So kudos to those intermediate students and to Ms. Marston. Best, and I know there's music folks in the audience, the best communities for music education is recognition. Our districts in Lehigh County get recognized. Southern Lehigh has won it again. That's 10 years. The only other district in county that has won more than us is Parkland with 11. I'm so sorry, but when you look at, we're 3,100 students, they're like 11,000. That's, so we are crushing it in so many areas. So recognition that we're bringing home, I don't know, the blue. All right. Oh, the northern neighbor. And there's a jazz thing tomorrow night here, right? There's a jazz.
There's a jazz performance. Yes, tomorrow night. Yes, here. We have a time on that. 7 o'clock here in the high school, Mr. Carney.
The other thing talking about mentoring besides the Spartex was going to the middle school musical and seeing some of our theater students, not just in the audience, give them the first standing ovation were our high school kids, And then some of them were mentors to the middle school kids. So again, thank you so much.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Carney. You and I sat next to each other. It was a great show. Yeah, wonderful. And thanks to our new music teacher there for taking that on at the last minute. That was wonderful. They had something like 20 practices and they pulled it off. It was great. All right. Anything else under whatever business I'm under? Other business. We have information only. As Mr. Mon mentioned, a field trip to his company Demco is on there, outlined, and a conference request form for May. That brings us to visitor comments, and I do have folks who've signed in to speak. So let me move to that tab. Thank you, Dr. Eklittle, for replacing our fully operational microphone. All right. First, I have Oren Bossert. They would like to come up and speak on the subject of technology.
Hello, everyone. I'm back, and I come to the board with a recurring issue in the district for many staff and students alike, and that is technology. In the modern age, having suitable resources is necessary to learn effectively and stay on par with districts across the state and nation. This is why it is crucial to understand the importance of technology through two key perspectives. First, we must discuss the hardware we currently use, Apple products. There have been many discussions as the district's lease with Apple comes to renewal around switching to a new product such as Chromebooks. I must again stress the importance of not making this switch. Chromebooks, while may be a reputable product for some applications, they simply do not meet the needs of students. From Logger Pro in AP Physics, Eclipse in AP Computer Science, iMovie and Final Cut Pro in our TV and film production class, Photoshop for graphic design, and other third-party applications such as the CAD programs that Spartex uses all require technology such as Apple products. These resources are not available on Chromebooks, as you cannot use third-party applications on such devices, which is why it is so important to continue with the products that we are currently using, as they are exactly what we need as students to continue and further our education and meet state requirements for so many of these AP, honors, and on-level classes. By moving to Chromebooks, courses will have to dramatically change their curriculum, and teachers will find it difficult to meet these state requirements. Maintaining our current hardware is absolutely essential to facilitate an environment for growth and enrichment. Additionally, another major concern showed by many students and faculty is our current situation with our IT department, or lack thereof. Southern Lehigh currently employs one full-time and one part-time tech support personnel for the entire district of 3,100 students. 1.5 people manning a tech department of this size is absolutely insane. This is simply not adequate for our needs. And something I would like to address is that when we support the technology in the district, we are also uplifting so many other aspects of education, from our theater and arts departments to so many other assets of Southern Lehigh. By supporting and advancing technology in the district, we are uplifting all aspects of community and education. This has direct impacts in so many areas of student life. Having adequate technology is crucial if we want to see advancements in student connection with one another and the district as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Scarlett Cashmere.
Hello, board. My name is Scarlett Cashmere, and I'm a participant in the majority of the arts programs here at our high school. I participate in a number of different bands, including our full orchestra, our county band, and our regular marching band, as well as our concert band. And I would like to tell you a very short story about my high school county band concert, which was held here at Southern Lehigh. Our superintendent made a speech right before the concert, mentioning to the parents of all of Lehigh County band students that a helicopter containing a Penn State coach landed on our soccer field. Clearly, sports are highly valued in our school to the point where these achievements are congratulated at a band concert. Nevertheless, this was connected back to band in the end when Dr. Mahan stated that he wished a band director would be as appreciated as a Penn State football coach. You have all stated that you support the arts. However, I encourage you to show it. Not only can you state and shout out all of the wonderful talents we have, but we need funding to complete what we do. We do so well with what we have, and you need to use your imagination to think what we could do with it. We were nominated for a number of individual awards in our Freddie Awards for our theater program. However, we were not given an overall nomination. We were beat out by a number of other schools containing new special effects, adequate lighting for their theater, and overall a much better auditorium. Our auditorium could barely house the county band, and that was a really prideful moment for Southern Lehigh to be able to host such a prestigious concert. But we barely could do it. An auditorium is needed, and it needs to be upgraded. However, I understand that this will never benefit me as a student. I am graduating next year and will not be able to see these benefits. However, I hope for the students that come after me that they will have a better experience, that they will be given more funding to adequately support their theater, and that they will be given a much better auditorium. Not only is it used for theater, it is used for band, it is used for choir, it is used for meetings across multiple different organizations in our school. And it is needed for an upgrade. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Kyle Gangwer.
Okay, so the words were, we will provide what they need when they need it. Really? Yeah. Okay. Like you did this year. We've heard all this stuff before. Stephen, I believe that the words that you said, about your wonderful words about being supportive of the arts, I think you've said them while I was on the board a couple of times, but yet nothing changes. So basically what you've just told the entire music community is that we will need to continue to beg for scraps. And you can say no to things like you did this year. I am hopeful by Mr. Boyer's request, but we've heard all of this lip service so many times before. What's really bothersome is that our sports teams come to you one time and they get immediate approval and immediately put into the budget. Our arts community has come time after time after time after time after time, and we weren't even put on the agenda to discuss, let alone anything else. And the message was received, and these kids heard it too. So there's that. And Dr. Mahan, you have said the words to me that you are one of 9. So for you to look at Mrs. Gaiman tonight and tell her, oh no, of course, I will always take into account one of 9, that is absolutely false. And I will tell you, I remember a time when myself and Priya Serene and Emily Gaiman all emailed you, all 3 of us emailed you about putting arts information on an agenda, and you said, I'm sorry, you're not in the majority, I will not entertain that. That is what you told us. So none of that was ever put on an agenda because the 3 of us did not hold the majority. That was a flat out lie, and I know it, you know it, and others here heard it and know it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Julie Bird.
Hi again, me again. How you doing? Now that the proposed budget has passed by the board, I wish to suggest the board consider changing the proposed budget to reflect the need for additional funding in the necessary layers be allocated to hiring additional school counselors, particularly K-8, especially in the intermediate school where the greatest need seems to be. It was mentioned by Dr. Mann tonight that a professional was hired to assess the effectiveness of the school counselors, related personnel, and school nurses. I would be interested to read that report, and I will reach out to the board members and administrators with that request. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Betty Gangware.
Hi. I just want to state that despite the shallow statements that have been given to us from some of you, it still feels to me that the attitude that is given to our theater department feels to be more. Oh my God, sorry. It feels to be about more than money at this point in the way that you have spoken throughout tonight, not just these statements that you gave. A short sentence. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. A short sentence about how you care about the arts doesn't prove anything to any of the kids that are continuously let down by this board. It feels to me that there is a lack of sincere respect for your students that are involved in the arts. If there was a real respect for these students, then when our director, Mrs. Foley, asked kindly to have the cast of The Addams Family be sent off for their opening night, just like sports are sent off, she wouldn't have been met with a response that the send-offs are only for sports. I'd like to bring back the point that my mom, Kyle Gangwer, made about the fact that one of your students was burnt by your microphones, yet you still did not purchase new microphones. You fixed the wiring, but who's to say it won't just electrocute someone else? You said that you have commitment to this program. If that's true, then why are your students, the kids who should feel comfortable confiding in the school board for assistance, who should feel supported and encouraged doing what they are passionate about, feel that they aren't considered important in our department in this district? It is your job to make an adequate budget. You begun by saying how it would be simple enough to make adjustments in the budget when you were discussing the topics that weren't theater. So why did that stance change completely when it came to the theater? The discussion that was had was primarily the same people restating the same sentences, contradicting themselves. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. The conversation did not feel thorough at all. I didn't have time to organize what I wanted to say, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Carolyn Basia, and I apologize for that pronunciation. If it's incorrect, please correct me.
No problem. Thank you. It's Boscia.
Boscia, thank you. Carolyn Boscia.
Thanks. And it's wonderful to meet all of you. I had no plans to speak this evening, but I felt compelled to say something after I heard about the district's supposed secret gender affirmation policy. I too am alarmed by this. I'm alarmed that it would be secret. My view as a parent and a community member is that if we are telling our children to bring their authentic selves to school, the school doesn't need to have any role in telling our children who they are. Our school's job is to welcome our children in their authentic selves, nurture them, accept the beautiful qualities that each of them brings to school every day, and help them to live lives to their fullest. That's it. It's fairly simple. And if there is a secret gender affirmation policy, I would encourage the school board to make it less secret, because it would be a beautiful way of demonstrating to our students that they're loved and appreciated for each of their unique qualities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I have Larissa Cashmere.
Hi, I know I came in late, but I was listening to the whole thing while the Lady Spartans were beating Northwestern at lacrosse. So we did a good job. I'm here to represent the theater department, though. You've heard about our talented students in the theater department with regional recognition through the Freddie Awards. I just want to understand and make sure that you understand that when you speak of solutions that make sense, there are a few things that truly don't make sense to me. What mainly didn't make sense was that there were previous line items where we had specific positions that were covered up until 2 years ago, including music director and orchestra director, and they somehow fell off, is how it's been explained to me. These are vital. Music and orchestra are necessary for a musical. Every spring we have a musical, and that's been going on for decades. I'm assuming it maybe had something to do with COVID, how we didn't have a musical during the COVID year. But that seems like something very simple that could just be put back to where it was. Obviously, there has been inflation since that time, and that's been already addressed. So we would do better with more, but even just to give us back what we previously had would be bare minimum. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Renee D'Amico.
Hi, I am not going to say much. I will follow up with an email based on some of the thoughts I have from what happened here tonight. What I do want to do is go on public record and thank these kids for being so brave. It is so hard to get up in front of a group and do public speaking. I kind of want to vomit right now because I really hate public speaking, but I want to thank them because they are so brave and on the fly. They are telling you and bearing their hearts and souls of what's important to them. I think that is just amazing that these kids do that. And this is just one example of this amazing theater community. They are such a wonderful group, and I'm just so proud of them. And I just wanted to go on public record and say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Robert Morgan. Yeah, I got to say, Robert, you're the tallest person, so feel free to adjust that mic. There you go.
Hey, long time no see. So, I mean, I don't want to bore your ears with the things that you've heard countless times at countless meetings by all of these people and more who are not in this room right now. But just a few things that I would like to reiterate, a few fun facts about our theater program. For example, this is not our first year or first time, let me say that, being put at a disadvantage due to our financial issues when it comes to our budget. And in fact, this is not even our first director to have this problem. For example, this year, our fall play Curtains, which was a fairly good success in my opinion, the set of that show consisted of one flat and, oh, that's right, the theater. There was no set for that show. And it's crazy because this is not even the first time in a fall play, which there is a difference, by the way, that this has happened, because last year we did a play called Mother Hicks, and our set was, I wouldn't say, what, 4 pieces of styrofoam gravestones. And in fact, during that fall production of Mother Hicks, that was not the only thing that was funded, I should say, by ourselves. For example, my character in the play had to speak an entirely sign language, and I'm not too familiar with sign language. I had to go out with the help of a fellow castmate, Shannon Gordon, and luckily enough, she knew a lady who was able to help me learn sign language in order to fulfill this role. There was no funding, no help assisted by the school, and this was completely done on my own with the help of a woman I had met 2 weeks ago. I also would like to raise a few questions. For one, I was wondering what you members of the board think will happen when our production size grows as it naturally does, and we end up having a certain amount of students that succeeds the budget that we have. I was also wondering, Mr. Pepe, you said that it's minimal input. The budget being raised is minimal input, direct quote, saying that we can make changes anytime. And last time I checked, it had been anytime. We have been coming to these meetings countless times, in and out. Again, like I said, several different people, these people here and more. And yet no change has truly, no big impact has truly been made. And then one last thing I would like to say, and this is with all due respect, I'm not here to debate semantics, but it does feel kind of undermining, Dr. Mann, when you refer to our productions, which, by the way, it's not only referring to our productions as just our plays. When you mentioned, for example, needing a music director, that's as for our spring musical. Our play does not usually need a music director. Let me just say that. And then again, it's not only just the theater program or our shows that need budget. For example, that auditorium is being used by Scarlett Cashmere. Let me say that because there's 2 Cashmeres. Said it is being used by a plethora of different sources within the school and occasionally even from outside of the school. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our visitor comment for this evening. Yes, motion accepted. Yeah, let's adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, y'all. Have a good evening. Safe travels.